Chapter 601. In Jingfeng City, the two venerables returned with heavy injuries. The three human sovereigns were shocked. Mount Li died in battle. We failed. Bailey Zun said weakly as he stumbled and vomited blood. How is that possible? Without the yin and yang formation, the Marquis shouldn't be so strong, Venerable Luo Xiao said. Why don't we ask the Alliance Venerable to join forces with the other three regions to kill this traitor? Venerable Baihui said. No, we can't see through the Alliance Venerable's thoughts. The war between the two realms has ended, and the Inner World Alliance only exists in name. It won't be easy to borrow the power of the other three regions, Bu Chuanxiu, who had survived the invasion of Heaven's Province, said. Are we going to let the Marquis of Heaven's Province go? Don't you know the consequences of letting a tiger return to its mountain? Venerable Luo Xiao said. Of course not. But we need a better excuse, said Bu Chunxiu, his eyes glittering. What do you mean? Venerable Luo Xiao didn't understand. Killing demons, Bu Chunxiu said coldly. Back then, Tianji City said that the Marquis of Heavens Beyond was the source of calamity. As expected, a few years later, Heaven's Province invaded Zhongzhou, and we can use that to kill demons again. Of course, it would be best if we could get the help of Tianji City. It won't be easy. The people of Tianji City never lie. It'll be difficult to get them to help, Venerable Baihui said. Bu Chuanxiu sneered and said, It's not impossible. It's not easy, but it's not difficult either. Back then, Zhao Liusu was behind it, and Tianji City divined that Jiming would become a demon. That's why the world was able to kill demons. Everyone should know that it's easy to become a demon, but it's difficult to turn back. I think that Jiming Marquis has been unable to become a Zun cultivator because of this. Venerable Chuanxiu, you mean that the Marquis of Heaven's Province can become a demon again? Venerable Luo Xiao said seriously. Yes, Bu Chuanxiu nodded. Or rather, the Marquis of Heaven's Province hasn't been able to get rid of the demons. I don't know how he regained his sanity, but once he becomes a demon, he'll be a demon forever. Hearing this, Baihui Zun narrowed his eyes and said, If that's the case, then it's easy. We just need to make another trip to Tianji City. The truth will be revealed very soon. What about Jiming Marquis? How can we stall him? Honored Master Luo Xiao asked. Send the disciples of the cult to intercept them. If the knowing destiny state intervenes, he will be labeled as a murderer of the innocent. That's exactly what we want. Then, Bu Chunxiu looked at the two injured Zun cultivators and said, Zun cultivators, please heal as soon as possible. We'll need your help when we kill the Marquis. Bailey and Hong Lu both nodded in agreement. In the wilderness, the bright moon shone brightly, sprinkling a faint chill. Ningchen held Yiner's hand and walked. Not long after, the little girl he was holding became sleepy, so he carried her on his back. As her master, regardless of whether it was his demonic body or his main body, he was extremely protective of Yiner. He was unwilling to let the little lass suffer the slightest grievance. In the past, when Jiming was young, he had the protection of his eldest grandson and Prince Yan. That was why he had survived many dangers. Today, Jiming had become an elder and began to protect the younger generation under his wings to prevent them from being destroyed by the wind and rain. Inheritance was the most selfless contribution in the world. Generation after generation, it was a responsibility and an obligation. Cold. In the wilderness, the cold wind was slightly chilly. Yiner murmured half asleep and hugged her arms even tighter. Ningchen waved his hand, and a black robe appeared. He gently put it on the little girl, and then continued walking. Demon, although I don't want you to bring disaster to the world, I still have to remind you that if a demon has human feelings, he will definitely destroy himself. Especially when you're still in the midst of the demon tribulation. The voices of 49 men and women sounded. I'm just repaying Sword Master Zhu's kindness, Ningchen said lightly. That's for the best. Demon, you're getting deeper and deeper into the tribulation. Your cultivation will also become weaker and weaker. Before your cultivation reaches its lowest point, you should leave the Central Plains as soon as possible. The 49 leaders of the Taoist sects reminded him. I understand. Ningchen nodded. In the silent night and the cold wind, knowing destiny walked faster and faster. When the cold moon was hanging high in the sky, many figures appeared and blocked his path again. Marquis, knowing destiny, the Alliance leader has ordered you to return to competitive Peak City, a half-venerable said in a low voice. The death of a foolish person is not to be regretted. In order to list my crimes, your master has really put in a lot of effort. Coldness flashed in Ning Chen's eyes. He waved his hand and Taisha appeared. He moved and waved his sword with killing intent. The cold white light showed no mercy. In the blink of an eye, Huang Quan spared his life. Waterfalls of blood dyed the white moon red. In the night it was killing. In the wind bright red blood floated. Miserable cries shook the sky. No one had expected knowing destiny to kill without caring about the consequences. Those who couldn't escape were left with their souls in the night. Blood splattered from the sword like a waterfall. The nature of a demon was one that disliked scheming. Killing was the most direct way to solve a problem. Broken limbs were scattered all over the ground. Miserable cries were useless. Running was also useless. In the blink of an eye, the ground was covered in blood. Knowing destiny, who couldn't stop him, took his life mercilessly. With the last sword blood dyed the sky. Taisha withdrew his sword and walked away in red robe. Bang! Bang! In the wilderness, several figures fell to the ground. Blood dyed the ground red. They had come with orders, but they didn't have the life to return. On the back of the red robe, Ener was still sleeping sweetly. She wore a black robe to block the cold of the night. In a secret room in competitive Peak City, rows of jade tablets were broken. Bu Chuanxiu, who was waiting for news, narrowed his eyes. Knowing destiny had really killed them all. At the same time, in Tianji City, the 7 white-robed youths were using the divination art to calculate knowing destiny's true body. Luo Xiao and Bai Hui were waiting. They needed an excuse. If Tianji City could provide this excuse, it would be the best. Day after day, the 7 white-robed youths suddenly trembled and vomited blood. Crimson Demon. Within the heavenly secrets, the 7 youths revealed expressions of disbelief as they exclaimed in shock. Even they didn't expect that the military advisor, who had been helping the inner world fight against heaven's sanctum, was really the Crimson Demon. It turned out that the demon had always been a demon. It was just that none of them could see it. Hearing the words of the 7 youths, Luo Xiao and Bai Hui's eyes flashed coldly. It was really an unexpected and joyful harvest. Knowing destiny was a demon, it was an unforgivable sin. Thank you. The 2 venerables spoke before their silhouettes faded away, leaving the Tianji City. One day later, in Taibai residence Bailu Academy, Mizar Dynasty, messengers appeared one after another, and invited the leaders of the various sects to discuss the situation. In front of Taibai residence, the one-armed venerable Taibai was silent. Shortly after he sighed and said, "Messengers, please return. Taibai's body is already half crippled. I don't want to burden you all." In Bailu Academy, Yi Qingqiu also declined the invitation, and sent the messengers away with the reason of being unwell. Mizar Dynasty, Central Heavenly Court. In the majestic purple clouds, the primitive emperor listened to the messenger's report. After a while, he opened his mouth and said, "Killing the demon and protecting the living is my duty." The primitive emperor is wise. I admire you. The messenger bowed and said goodbye before turning and leaving. Father, Yi Xuanmiao said with a solemn expression. No need to say any more. Xuanmiao, don't forget your identity. Also, it's time to avenge your 3 brothers. In the purple clouds, the primitive emperor said coldly. At the same time, on the road to the east, wave after wave of experts from the various sects blocked the road. Knowing destiny didn't put away his sword. Blood kept dripping down and staining the road to the east. In order to stop knowing destiny, the leaders of the various sects didn't hesitate to sacrifice themselves. Wave after wave of allied forces blocked the road to buy time for the final battle. Ning Chun, encountering the continuous pursuit of the various sects, even felt that the situation wasn't right. Her little face was full of worry. Don't worry. With Master here, no one can hurt you. Ning Chen's face showed a touch of gentleness. Arrogant words. Marquis, knowing destiny, have the ability to save your own life before caring about others. At this moment, The void under the night shook violently. Extremely powerful figures walked out one after another. The world trembled, unable to accommodate their bodies. 1, 2, 3. 10 supreme beings arrived at the same time, followed by 30 half-supreme beings. Then an army of thousands of innate experts showed up. It was a shocking lineup, and they were determined to eliminate the demonic calamity once and for all. Many supreme experts appeared. Not only Zhongzhou, but even the supremes of the other 3 regions came. Their former subordinates betrayed knowing destiny today. Seeing this, Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, "Everyone, such a big lineup. You really think highly of knowing destiny. If you die, the world will be at peace." Wuxia walked out and said coldly. Ningchen waved his hand and took out the commander's seal. He said lightly, "It seems that the trace of soul in this commander's seal doesn't have any binding power on you." With a bang, the jade seal shattered and the soul power dissipated. However, the Supreme's expressions were the same as before. They weren't affected at all. "We didn't dare to act rashly if we weren't fully prepared. Marquis, knowing destiny, are you still not going to restore your true body?" Wuxia sneered. Ningchen ignored him. He looked at the Supremes of the other regions and said calmly, "Everyone, it's not surprising that the sects of Zhongzhou can't tolerate knowing destiny. I just don't know why the Supremes have come. Killing demons doesn't matter where you come from. Red refining demon, you're doomed." Supremacy Qing Yu walked out and said coldly, "What about you? Do you have the same reason?" Ningchen looked at the other Supremes and asked calmly, "Killing demons and protecting lives is our duty," Supremacy Chiwei said. "Haha." Looking at the silhouettes floating in the sky, Ningchen chuckled. Gradually, his laughter became colder and colder, angrier and angrier. The coldness in his laughter continued to fluctuate. "So no matter what you do, you can't change your dirty hearts. You want red refining demon, so I'll give you red refining demon, the source of all evil." As soon as he finished speaking, the furious knowing destiny opened his eyes. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color. Endless demonic waves rolled out. His red clothes were torn to pieces, and his ink-black clothes fluttered in the wind. Red Lotus of the Devil reappeared in the world. Chapter 602. Outside the Locket Mountain, the Supremes of various sects had joined forces to kill knowing destiny. The world's demon-slaying battle had started once again. The grudge that couldn't be resolved finally erupted after the end of the Tianfu War. 10 Supremes arrived at the same time, accompanied by an army of inborn experts, cutting off all escape routes. They were determined to completely end the demon-slaying battle that had lasted for several years. In the encirclement, knowing destiny revealed his true self. His black robe and long hair danced in the wind. His cold gaze was devoid of any human emotions, making people feel a bone-chilling coldness. Seeing the familiar yet strange figure beside her, Ina was startled at first. She then grabbed the former's sleeves tightly, her pretty face unwavering. "Are you afraid?" The demon body tilted his head and asked. "No." Ina shook her head and replied, "All right, follow me. I'll bring you out of this encirclement." After recovering his demon body, Ningchen's tone was no longer as gentle as before. However, his words were firm and unquestionable. "Okay." Ina nodded and replied. With a wave of his hand, Qi Lian's blade appeared out of thin air. Ningchen held his sword and rushed out. The sword moved rhythmically, causing the space to wail. Bailey, Qi Wei, and Qing Yu blocked the ferocious sword. The collision shook violently, and after a moment of stalemate, Luo Xiao, Bai Hui, and Hong Lu rushed forward with surging vast vital energy. Xianzhen and Wen Yang followed behind. Their moves shook the earth and mountains. The 8 Supremes joined forces to slay the demon-slaying calamity. 1 advanced, 2 defended, and constantly changed their attacks. Facing the demon-slaying calamity, Ning Chen's expression was cold. He held Yin, with one hand and waved Qi Lian with the other. Boundless demonic qi rose around them. With the demonic qi protecting his body, and the phoenix vital energy supporting him, his strength and speed were combined. With the demon-slaying calamity in his hand, he was unstoppable. The sonorous sound of swords, axes, and halberds clashing could be heard. The 8 Supremes and 30 half-Supremes formed a killing formation to stop the demon-slaying calamity. Outside the killing formation, Bu Chuanqiu and Yuan Emperor watched the battle calmly, waiting for an opportunity to attack. The 8 Supremes took turns to fight, knowing Destiny's martial soul was covered with sword radiance. A brave sword and a brave figure. Facing the encirclement of the army, he didn't show any fear. Kill! Thousands of Xiantian experts stepped forward with weapons in their hands. Sabers, spears, swords, halberds, and spears were all aimed to kill, leaving no room for negotiation. Bloody path. The demonic body moved, and Qi Lian opened the Yellow Springs Road. His sword moved rhythmically, and sword light tore through the air. Severed limbs flew everywhere, and blood dyed the wilderness red. The weapon surged like a tidal wave, and in the blink of an eye, blood congealed into a river. The blood-stained sword became even denser, and the crimson sword tip shone with a dazzling light. 3 venerables retreated, but another 3 venerables followed. Their powerful attacks did not stop at all. Amidst the storm-like attacks, the demon body took strange steps. His figure was like an illusion as he dodged crisis after crisis. The crimson drill in his hand continued to absorb the power of resentment between heaven and earth, causing its might to become increasingly astonishing. Rip! The sound of clothes being torn rang out. Blood splattered from Bailey Zun's right arm. It was the first time he had been injured by a sword that was both fast and powerful. Outside of the battle, Bu Chuanqiu and Yuan Emperor stepped forward and joined hands with the halberd to help the situation. With 2 powerful experts attacking, Ning Chen immediately felt the pressure increase. He used his sword to shake off the heavy halberd that was about to hit him. His figure flashed and he retreated a few steps. The primitive emperor snorted coldly as his palm followed closely behind. Ning Chen held his sword horizontally to block the attack. With a loud noise, he was pushed back a few more steps. The power of fortune. Looking at the purple qi that surrounded the former, Ning Chen squinted his eyes and said coldly, "Jiming Marquis, I've been waiting for this day for a long time." The primitive emperor clenched his fist, and the purple qi increased. A huge dragon-shaped aura roared out and surrounded him. The Mizar emperor revealed the cultivation of a venerable for the first time. Ning Chen flipped his palm to block the dragon aura. He retreated half a step and used the momentum to rush out. With a swing of his sword, a black phoenix roared out behind him. The dragon and phoenix roared as they soared into the sky. A moment later, they collided with each other and boundless airflow surged out. In the aftermath of the collision, the 2 retreated at the same time. It was a draw. 1 move for 1 move. Jiming Marquis, you've lost. The primitive emperor suppressed the injuries in his body and stepped forward. He pushed his palm once again, shaking the world. Bu Chuanqiu also waved his halberd, and the other 8 venerables cooperated with each other. Ning Chen stood tall and faced the army alone. The demonic aura on his sword was pushed to the limit. Blood flame. As Qi Lian slashed out, raging currents gathered from all directions. Red blood flames that could burn the sky and boil the sea surged out. The earth cracked open and earth fire spewed out, boosting the might of the demonic technique. In an instant, screams of agony shook the sky. Wherever the bloody flames passed, the bodies and souls of the upper sky realm cultivators were engulfed by the waves of fire and turned into ashes in an instant. A sword shook the heavens, and a gap appeared in the encirclement. Ning Chen held Yiner's hand and rushed toward the gap. "Do you think you can escape?" Bu Chuanqiu leaped and waved his halberd to block the path. The halberd's momentum was as heavy as a mountain. At that moment, the dragon's gate appeared, and a young woman in purple clothes walked out. She raised her hand and grabbed the halberd. "Bu Chuanqiu Zun cultivators, what are you doing?" she asked coldly. "Alliance sovereign, the Jiming Marquis is Qi Lian Mo. The truth is right in front of us. Please work together to eliminate this demon," said Bu Chuanqiu coldly. "What if I say no?" Zhao Liusu's eyes flickered coldly. "Then I'll have to offend you." Bu Chuanqiu spun the halberd in his hand and slashed downwards with an earth-shattering power. "You!" Zhao Liusu's expression was cold. She waved her hand to block the halberd, and then sent it flying with a palm. "If he can't, then what about me?" The battle changed once more. Multicolored light condensed, and a green-robed girl walked out. It was the third senior sister. She Piaoxiu. Zhao Liusu's expression sank. Continue chasing the Jiming Marquis. Leave this to me, said Shi Piaoxiu indifferently. Many thanks. Bu Chunqiu nodded and chased after him. The 10 venerables moved. Zhao Liusu's figure flashed, wanting to stop them. However, Shi Piaoxiu moved with her and condensed vast yuan in her palm. The two palms collided, and Shi Piaoxiu was forced back a step. However, with the Buddhist sect's indestructible body, she was able to block Zhao Liusu's path. Shi Piaoxiu, the Jiming Marquis has no enmity with you. Why do you want to kill him? Raged Zhao Liusu. If he doesn't die, then junior sister will never be able to enter the venerable realm. Moreover, the Buddha and the devil have always been at odds. The Jiming Marquis has already turned into a devil. If he stays, he will bring disaster to the world, said Shi Piaoxiu coldly. It was hard to understand. Zhao Liusu's expression sank. She didn't say anything else and stepped forward. The 9 souls wheel appeared and turned into a divine sword. With a bang, the two of them clashed again. The air surged and swallowed the two of them. At the same time, Ningchen held Yiner's hand and waved his sword. Halberds were broken limbs flew, and blood splattered everywhere. Jiming Marquis, you can't escape. Palm energy and halberd light attacked from behind. Ningchen turned around to block. In the fierce collision, blood flowed out of his right arm. You're injured, said Yiner anxiously. It's fine. Ningchen replied softly. Demonic flames rose on his sword, and he swung the halberd away. Immediately after, he moved to the side and dodged Ling Shui's palm energy. He stepped forward and attacked again. Skybreaker. 100 zhang-wide mist split the sky and the earth. Blood and bones flew everywhere. The two venerables received the attack, and retreated a few steps. When the two venerables retreated, the 3 venerables moved forward again. There was no gap in their attacks. His sword blocked the 3 venerables. Before he could recover, Ningchen's mouth was dyed red. He shouted and demonic waves rolled out. With a bang, the 3 venerables were pushed back a few zhang. The halberd followed closely behind. The sword and halberd collided. Blood splattered everywhere. The sword momentum didn't stop at all. The demonic aura was chaotic. The magnificent sword pressure shook the earth. Bu Chuanqiu and Yuan Emperor retreated a dozen steps at the same time. Blood flowed out of the corners of their mouths. On the other side, Ning Chun was hit by the aftershock. His mouth was also red. The demonic aura around him shook and showed signs of instability. Jiming Marquis, your path has come to an end. Luo Xiao, Bai Hui, and Hong Lu pressed forward again. At the critical moment, a blue light flashed in the distance. The path sword broke through the sky and blocked the 3 venerables. The figure with a broken arm was no longer there, full of the smell of alcohol. The once high-spirited chief of Taibai Prefecture was later defeated by the legend of the Eastern Region swordsman. His Taoist sword was broken, and his Taoist heart was damaged. He spent his days in a drunken stupor. Today he came out again, forgetting his Taoist sword and returning to the dust. Jiming Marquis, let's go, the Taibai Prefecture chief said calmly. Thank you. Ningchen didn't hesitate. He took Yin and rushed toward the Locket Mountain. Taibai Prefecture chief, you? Looking at the person in front of him, Luo Xiao said angrily. No need to say more. Come. The Taibai Prefecture chief waved his hand and took the path sword. You can't save him. Today no one can save him. Bu Chuanqiu snorted coldly. His halberd rushed forward and slashed down. The 2 experts clashed. The earth shook and cracks spread out for thousands of zhang. While dragging the battle on, the primitive emperor channeled the power of fate at the same time. His palm force surged and struck toward the great white manor lord. Continue chasing, shouted Bu Chunqiu. He waved his halberd and blocked the path of the leader of the Taibai public house. The 8 supremes and the army continued to chase. They had planned for several days and made many arrangements. They wouldn't allow Jiming to escape. Below the Locket Mountain, the army was endless. Qiu Yan's sword emitted bloody light and a murderous aura. In a battle of life and death, there was no friendship. There was only killing to find a way to survive. The sound of the sword was mournful and sorrowful. The knowing destiny state was exhausted by the devil tribulation. His body shook violently and became more and more unstable. Put me down and leave first. They won't hurt me. Seeing the blood dripping from Jiming's arm, Yiner's eyes were filled with tears. Don't say stupid things, Ningchen replied. He lightly shouted and waved his sword. Instantly, demonic waves rolled like waves. His sword reflected the moon. The dark clouds in the 9 heavens gathered rapidly, and thunder rumbled. Demonic technique heaven burial. As the sword pierced the ground, divine lightning descended from the 9 heavens, and the earth in all directions collapsed. Boundless sword intent rapidly spread out, and everywhere it passed, mountains collapsed and rivers of blood flowed. Just as Jiming was in a life-and-death situation, a beautiful figure in a green dress appeared hundreds of miles away. Her gentle face was full of anxiety as she rushed toward the battlefield. Qingning, the last family member of Knowing Destiny, flew through the night like a moth and rushed to the fatal situation. Chapter 603. At the foot of Wuxia Mountain, the Knowing Destiny state had a battle of life and death. The bloody night was the mark of the demon's massacre. Thousands of Khanate cultivators kept advancing. Blood and bones paved the road to hell, blocking the demon's path. In the battle, the black-haired and black-clothed figure looked emotionless. His sword was even more emotionless. The besieging army fell one after another. His sword cut through soldiers and souls. More than half of the 30 half-venerables had died in the battle. The 8 human sovereigns were also injured to varying degrees. The strength of the demon shocked everyone present. Ha! Sword light flashed and blood splashed. The demon was invincible in the battle of killing the demon. He was famous for his sword dance. Looking at the brave figure on the battlefield, the human sovereigns were shocked. The killing intent in their hearts intensified. At this moment, the sovereigns of the 3 regions outside of Zhengzhou finally understood why the churches in Zhengzhou would kill the Knowing Destiny state at all costs. When a wise man had absolute power, no one in the world could stop him. The battle reached its climax. Corpses piled up. The Knowing Destiny state sovereigns were dyed red. With a slash of his sword, the half-venerables died. Suddenly, a powerful palm came out from behind the half-venerables and hit the Knowing Destiny state sovereign's chest. Blood splashed. Ningchen took half a step back. The sword in his hand went through the half-venerable's body and penetrated the right shoulder of Supreme Luo Xiao. Ugh! Supreme Luo Xiao let out a muffled groan and raised his hand to grab the sword blade, wanting to stall the former. Changing hands. Ningchen's eyes flashed coldly. He spun his sword and cut off Ningchen's arm. With a piercing sound, blood filled the air. Seeing another palm strike coming, Ningchen drew his sword to block it. With a loud bang, he was pushed back several steps. Vermilion dripped down, dyeing the black clothes. Injuries were exchanged, and the battle became even more desperate. Luo Xiao, how are you? Bai Hui stepped forward and asked seriously. I can still hold on. He can't hold on for much longer. Let's end this quickly in case something happens, Supreme Luo Xiao said with a pale face as he sealed the wound. Understood. Bai Hui nodded. On the other side, the demon held Yiner's hand and moved forward. Blood splashed everywhere, and corpses were everywhere. Knowing Destiny state had never stopped. They knew that if they were defeated here, it would be the end. They would not allow anyone to stop them. Before this, they could only live and live. As the sword was swung, blood splattered down, reflecting scenes of the past. 20 years of ups and downs in the mortal world. A drifting lonely boat could no longer find a ferry. Knowing Destiny state did not know his own fate. He could only hold the sword in his hand tightly and cut down all obstacles. The blood of the fallen figures gathered into a small river and dyed the ground under the Locket Mountain red. The moonlight shone through the dark clouds, creating a desolate scene. Suddenly, there was a cry of pain as the blade slashed past. Ningchen was unable to block it in time. Blood gushed out of Yiner's left arm and dyed her clothes red. Ningchen turned around, and his pupils constricted. Then a cold light flashed in his eyes. He swung his sword and cut the half-venerable realm cultivator, who had injured the little girl, into 2. The gushing blood blinded the eyes of many innates. Their gazes were filled with fear, hatred, resentment, and many other complicated emotions. At the same time, Far away in the heavenly music pavilion in northern plains, Mu Qingxue, who was pushing the sound mill, suddenly felt a strong sense of uneasiness. He could not explain why, but it lingered in his heart. His snow-white robe was now dyed red. The iron chain that pierced through his shoulder blades restricted his freedom. 100 years of night, like black silk in the morning, like snow in the evening. Affected by his emotions, the sound of the great Tao changed. At this moment, the void shook, and an abnormally strong figure walked out. Looking at the girl in front of the sound mill, he said, "Your heart is not calm anymore." Something happened to him. "Pavilion Master, please let me out of the heavenly music pavilion. Once I'm done, I'll return immediately," Mu Qingxue said with an anxious and pleading expression. "It's difficult to leave the heavenly music pavilion." The heavenly music pavilion master said. Then her figure faded and disappeared. "Pavilion Master," Mu Qingxue shouted anxiously. However, there was no response. "There's no need to think about getting married. Mu Qingxue, back then, you made a deal with Master to take on the task of pushing the sound mill. You won't be able to leave for 100 years, said Wu Qingying calmly. I'm willing to pay any price. Miss Qingying, please plead on my behalf, begged Mu Qingxue. That's impossible. I'm also powerless. Wu Qingying shook her head. It was truly difficult to understand. Those who cultivated the greatest indifference art would completely erase their most unforgettable memories from the start. Logically speaking, Mu Qingxue should not have recovered his memories, but he was still unable to let go of that person. Hopefully, the Heavenly Music Pavilion would be able to sever this entangled relationship in 100 years. At the same time, in the barbarian palace of the Eastern Divine Prefecture, a beautiful girl was kneeling in the middle of a palace and kowtowing 3 times. You still can't let him go? The former king of the barbarian dynasty lamented as he stood before the girl. Your daughter is unfilial, said Wild softly. You can go. The barbarian king waved his hand and sighed. Wild kowtowed once more before standing up. She took the Origin Heart sword and left. Locket Mountain. Under the cold moon, the sounds of fighting still didn't cease. The intense battle caused the surrounding 50 miles to be covered in a bloody mist. Layers of killing formations left no path of retreat. Inside the formations, Knowing Destiny used their swords to kill and slaughter. 8 sovereigns were already injured, and less than 10 half-sovereigns remained. No one had expected such a huge price to pay. This shocked and infuriated the human sovereigns. They had prepared for a long time and used all their strength, but they were still unable to smoothly eliminate this person. If there was a day when Knowing Destiny stepped into the sovereign realm, the various sects would be doomed. The demon body sword was ruthless and merciless. Although it was injured, its killing intent grew stronger and stronger. Each of its moves was like the yellow springs taking lives. Demonic art, heavenly tears. Qi Lian danced, and the resentment on the sword erupted. The wind and clouds changed and demonic waves swept out. Heaven and earth dimmed. The sovereigns only felt their cultivation techniques become sluggish, and the circulation of their true essence was restricted. The 3 against 3 formation was immediately broken. The last 2 couldn't gather their strength in time, and were heavily injured. The ground was dyed red. This was the shock of the demonic calamity. The strongest demonic calamity had already far surpassed Qi Lian from 4,000 years ago. Beside Knowing Destiny, Ener bit her lips. Although the wound was painful, she still forced herself not to scream. She didn't want Knowing Destiny to worry. Blade light and sword shadows intertwined. Blood dripped down from the black-clothed Knowing Destiny's face. His steps were like a dragon as he slashed with his sword. Knowing Destiny, Marquis, how long can you struggle for? The situation changed. The 8 sovereigns immediately changed their tactics. They teamed up and attacked once more. As the sword and palm clashed, Knowing Destiny, who was exhausted, took a few steps back. Drops of blood dripped down from the corner of his mouth and dyed his clothes red. The path of the world was difficult, and demonic cultivators couldn't survive. Ningchen glanced at Locket Mountain behind him. Qi Lian activated the power of resentment again. Amidst the earth-shattering vibrations, a magnificent sword light soared into the sky. Nirvana. Extreme swords intersected with each other, and they were peerlessly gorgeous. Everywhere the sword light passed, space collapsed, and the ground was reduced to ruins. 4 sovereigns were the first to be hit. They vomited blood and retreated. The other 4 were also affected by the sword, and took a few steps back. A flaw appeared in the killing formation. Ningchen stepped forward and dashed towards Locket Mountain behind him. The path was rugged and difficult to traverse. However, the Yellow Springs road made of blood and bones was never easy to traverse. The soldiers along the way fell one after another under the bloody sword light. His stubborn will drove his unyielding soul. He still didn't know when to give up in the face of the army. Blood dripped from his black hair. But the blood on his sword was 100 times, no, 1,000 times stronger. The Alliance army was protected by Knowing Destiny when Heaven Province invaded. Now they counterattacked and devoured Knowing Destiny. Along the way, a drop of blood fell on Einer's face. It was slightly warm and scalding. He never let go of her hand, and never thought of letting go. Knowing Destiny's 3 bodies were one. Although they had different personalities, they were all stubborn. Once they decided on something, they wouldn't let go no matter what. The mountain was surrounded by jade and blood dyed it red. The light of life was always so beautiful when it bloomed at the end. Countless figures had fallen. Blood and bones filled the mountain and dyed the entire Locket Mountain red. The battle of slaying demons was so tragic that words paled in comparison. In order to kill Knowing Destiny, the various sects sent out all their elites. They were determined to kill Knowing Destiny at all costs. On Locket Mountain, the army behind them surrounded them once more. The 8 sovereigns suppressed their injuries and circulated the last of their techniques. Ning Chen's sword blocked the palm, and the shockwave shook the surroundings. Blood flowed out from Ning Chen's mouth. He changed the direction of his sword and pushed back the 4 sovereigns in front of him. After the 4 sovereigns retreated, Luo Xiao, Bai Hui, Hong Lu, and Xianjin charged forward and pressed down with their palms. Ning Chen's black clothes were dyed red again. He took a few steps back and vomited a mouthful of blood. The demonic aura around him shook violently again. The demonic calamity that he couldn't escape from made the demonic cultivator fall into a life and death crisis. The sword on the ground still had a terrifying demonic aura, but it didn't have the terrifying pressure from before. Knowing Destiny, Marquis, you have nowhere to go. Seeing that Knowing Destiny's aura was showing signs of instability, the 8 sovereigns gathered their energy at the same time. The wind and clouds on the mountain swirled rapidly. The strongest move was unleashed. After one move, the battle of slaying demons ended. Ning Chen endured his injuries and pulled Einer behind him. His eyes flashed with determination. The demonic aura around him surged, and the demonic aura around him surged. He blocked the final move with his sword. Just as life and death were about to be decided, a figure in green appeared from afar. She blocked the fatal palm with her back facing the sovereigns. Blood splattered everywhere and dyed the sky red. Their gazes were so gentle. Looking at the last thing he cared about in his life, he was like a moth flying into a flame. He didn't hesitate and directly crashed into Scarlet Drill's sword. With a piercing sound, the sword pierced through his body. Blood spurted out like a fountain, dyeing his green clothes and Knowing Destiny's eyes red. Qing Ning raised her hand and caressed the face of the young man in front of her. A hint of reluctance flashed across her pale and beautiful face. He had really grown up. Actually, she didn't want to die. Actually, she wanted to live. She wanted to live and watch him go on. Unfortunately, she didn't have the chance. Ning Chen, you've become a demon. Chapter 604. On the Locket Mountain, the situation suddenly changed. The green-clothed figure was pierced by the crimson drill sword. Blood gushed out from her chest and dyed the sword red. Ning Chen was stunned. His heart, which had never wavered even when he had a murderous look on his face, collapsed instantly. Remember, you have to live. The green-clothed figure fell down the cliff behind her. Her last gaze was on the young figure on the cliff. The gentleness in her eyes couldn't be erased. He was fine. He had no regrets in this life. The falling figure gradually disappeared from his sight. Ning Chen reached out to grab her, but he couldn't grab her anymore. Unable to accept the fact, Ji Ming's body kept trembling. He was in so much pain that he couldn't breathe. His dark eyes were red. Ever since he woke up, he had never thought that his last pillar of support would leave him one day. Jiming was silent and couldn't shed tears. Gradually, Jiming's trembling body calmed down. However, this sudden change made the faces of all the venerables present freeze. Ha ha! In the next moment, an inexplicable laughter sounded on the Locket Mountain. The sound was like thunder and lightning. Then, a terrifying demonic aura shot up into the sky, scattering the clouds and piercing through the world. Ah! Jiming's soul rushed to the 9 heavens, and his demonic essence shook the world. Blood dripped from Jiming's eyes. His eyes instantly turned black. Jiming had turned into a demon, and was doomed eternally. Boom! The true demon appeared. Heaven and earth mourned. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts fell on the demon's body. However, they were stopped by the endless demonic aura, and couldn't hurt him at all. In the distance, the Grand White Academy's chief, Zhao Liusu, and the others who were rushing over also felt the terrifying demonic aura on the mountain. What a terrifying demonic aura! This was no longer a demon of the human world. What was inside Jiming's body? Just as the true demon descended into the human world, many Khanate experts in the 5 regions sensed it. They looked in the direction of the Locket Mountain in the central continent with shock in their eyes. Not good. In the ancient land of Chongling, the female supreme looked at the central continent in shock. What happened? Why did Jiming completely turn into a demon? In the divine prefecture of the eastern region, a pretty girl hurried to the central region. Because of the connection of their hearts, she could clearly feel the helplessness and grief of the collapse of knowing Destiny's inner support. He was so sad that he lost his heart and fell forever. Ning Chun. A man muttered and sped up slightly, vanishing into the night in the blink of an eye. In the heavenly music pavilion, in a strange space, Mu Qingxue, who was pushing the sound mill, trembled. He looked toward the central continent. He could not wait any longer. Drink! With a clear whistle, the sound mill rumbled and shook. It was about to be shaken apart again. At this moment, the void rippled, and the master of the heavenly music pavilion appeared. She raised her hand to stop the sound, and said with a serious expression, Mu Qingxue, have you forgotten your promise? What can you do if you go there now? On the darkest night of the Locket Mountain in the central continent, the demonic body's murderous aura grew denser and denser. Resentment gathered between heaven and earth as thunder and lightning flashed across the night sky. All of you deserve to die. Knowing Destiny stood up. His eyes were filled with terrifying darkness, without any trace of humanity. His messy black hair danced in the wind. Knowing Destiny, who had a firm heart, had lost his last warmth. His rationality had been devoured by the devil's heart, and he would fall forever. The demonic body moved, and the sword flashed. The army in front of the demonic body did not have time to react, and their bodies were directly cut open. The demonic body passed through, and the tip of the sword threatened to kill. Reverend Luo Zhao's pupils constricted. He flipped his palm, and condensed yuan to block the tip of the sword. Arg! A miserable cry rang out. The sword that was blocked directly slashed down. Without any obstruction, the sword cut open half of the Reverend's body. Blood spurted out. But the sword in the demonic body's hand did not stop at all. It swung for thousands of feet, and the Reverend's body was cut in half. This terrifying scene shocked everyone present. It was more terrifying than ever. A Reverend of the world could not block a single move. The situation changed in the blink of an eye. The situation that was about to succeed in slaying the devil took a terrifying turn. Knowing Destiny entered the void, and escaped the devil tribulation, completely turning into a devil. The surging devil chi spread out. The black-clothed, black-haired figure in the devil chi was like a death god. It was indescribably terrifying. Seeing the situation change, Reverend Bai Hui ordered, "Work together to kill him. Otherwise everyone will die." With this order, the battle began once more. This time, it was not just for slaying the devil but more for survival. The 7 reverends worked together, attacking and defending as one, resisting the true devil. With a bang, the force of his palm shook the murderous weapon. The demonic energy entered the sword, and the baleful aura surged. The 7 human supremes vomited blood and staggered back more than 10 steps. An unshakable enemy. The reverends' faces were filled with shock. They could not believe this huge change. At this moment, Yuan Emperor and Buchuanxiu rushed over from the distant battlefield. They worked together to attack the demonic blade. The demonic body reached out and directly grabbed the halberd. Then the sword slashed across, cutting apart the endless fate energy. Yuan Emperor's chest spurted out blood. Buchuanxiu's eyes shook. He immediately let go of the halberd and tried to retreat. However, it was already too late. The demonic body instantly moved and blocked his path. With a slash of the sword, blood spurted into the sky. After being heavily injured, Buchuanxiu endured his injuries and tried to retreat again without even thinking. Since you're here, there's no need to leave. The demonic body's words were calm. The demonic body waved his left hand, and the halberd in his hand flew out. The demonic wave spread for thousands of feet and directly pierced through the former's body. It shattered one mountain after another and nailed into the cliff in the distance. Of the 10 reverends, 2 were dead, 1 was crippled, and 7 were heavily injured. The terrifying demonic body made everyone feel endless despair. Ning Chun. In the distance, Zhao Liusu wanted to go forward, but she was stopped by the Taibai House chief. Don't go over. The Taibai House chief's expression was solemn. The current knowing destiny state probably didn't even recognize his own family anymore. That child. Zhao Liusu looked at the little girl shivering at the edge of the cliff. She was one of the few people she treasured. Nothing could happen to her again. We can't save her. We can only resign ourselves to fate. Moreover, the knowing destiny Marquis hasn't killed her yet. She might not be in danger, the Taibai House chief said with uncertainty. Time's up. All of you go to hell. On top of Locket Mountain, Jiming looked at the army in front of him with cold eyes. Shortly after, a wave of devilish energy surged out from his left hand as he slashed his sword. A terrifying sword pressure swept out in all directions. Red Lotus moved, demonic chi surged, and a forbidden technique fused together. 6 Dao Fall, myriad demonic tribulation, Taishang forbidden sword. As soon as the demonic body took a step forward, the dust under his feet churned. The demonic body entered the void. An endless black chi spread out rapidly, covering hundreds of miles of land. Demonic Phoenix Tribulation. The sword entered the void, and the 9 heavens sank. In an instant, the demonic phoenix spread its wings, and black flames covered the sky. Silently, a pitch-black sword light was formed from the demonic phoenix's body. 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 3, and 3 turned into an infinite number. A moment later, hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands of black sword lights fell from the sky and fell into the human world. After a moment of silence, the entire Locket Mountain collapsed. Amidst the black sword rain, thousands of Xiantian realm cultivators screamed miserably. They couldn't escape, and they were completely buried by the apocalyptic demonic tribulation. The moment the mountain collapsed, Zhao Liusu, who was beside the little girl, summoned the 9-wheel soul plate to block the black sword rain. But in just a breath's time, the 9-wheel soul plate shattered, and the sword light fell straight down. Arg! Blood splattered, and Zhao Liusu's mouth was dyed red. She quickly retreated. In the distance, the Grand White Palace Lord activated his Dao sword to open a path for the 2 of them. In just a few breaths' time, the backlash hit them, and they vomited blood. In the region of Locket Mountain, the Devil Phoenix's heavenly tribulation had ended. The most shocking scene was that the entire Locket Mountain had disappeared into thin air. Blood, bones, and rocks were mixed together as blood flowed out from between the rocks. The demonic body stood in the void, wearing black clothes. His long hair fluttered in the wind as he looked down coldly. The sword in his hand was dripping blood silently. He had protected the first time, the second time, and in the end, he still chose to bury the human world with his own hands. Chapter 605. The Locket Mountain was completely destroyed. Qing Ning's death caused Ji Ming's mental support to completely collapse. He became a demon overnight, and became an Azura forever. The Taishang forbidden sword appeared in the world. Wherever the black sword rain passed, the heavens and the earth were overturned, the mountains were destroyed, and the earth was destroyed. Thousands of Xiantian soldiers were slaughtered, and there were no survivors. Of the 8 supremes, 5 were dead and 3 were heavily injured. The black-robed demon slowly descended from the sky. His expression was indifferent. Whoosh! Qilian slashed and 2 heads flew. Blood spurted out. The black-robed demon walked past them, and their decapitated bodies fell to the ground. The last supremacy, the Yuan Emperor, was heavily injured. He vomited blood as he looked at the approaching demon. His eyes were filled with shock. Marquis Jiming, I. Before he could finish his words, Qilian slashed past. Blood spurted out as he died. The Yuan Emperor was unwilling to accept this. He took a step towards becoming a supremacy, but his grand plan came to an abrupt end in a single night. The black-robed demon didn't look back. His demonic aura was so cold that it could frighten gods and ghosts. On Nine Lotus Mountain, a red tower stood high above. The black-clothed man appeared from a great sect at the peak of the central plains. With a single sword strike, he flattened the great sect that had been passed down for thousands of years. With rumbling sounds, the great sect was destroyed. Along with the collapse of the red tower, it vanished into thin air. Half a day later, at the Mizar Imperial Palace, scarlet lights reflected the sun as demonic waves surged like waves. The entire Imperial Palace collapsed, turning into ruins. In 10 days, all the sects that had participated in the war against the demons were destroyed. Not a single one survived. Blood dyed every inch of the land. The demon brought disaster to the world and bathed the central plains in blood. Jiming, it's enough. The voices of 49 men and women sounded from the demon's body. It's not enough. The demon cultivator replied calmly. A day later he headed west. West Jade Mountain was one of the 3 holy lands of Buddhism. Today the demon descended. The war between Buddhism and demons that had lasted for thousands of years had begun once again. On West Jade Mountain, the master of the West Jade Mountain sensed something. His expression became grave as he looked at the demon walking over. He really did come. Buddha is merciful. Right at this moment on the mountain, the void swirled and Buddhist rain fell from the sky. A young-looking Buddha walked out with a Buddhist staff in his hand. He calmed the smoke of war and appeared solemnly in the world. Many thanks, light revered, said the West Jade Master politely. As fellow Buddhists, I can't just ignore this. He should be here soon. I never would have thought the 3 Buddhists would gather at such a time, sighed the Light Reverend. The West Jade Mountain has an undeniable responsibility for the Jiming Marquis turning into a demon. If possible, please spare his life. The West Jade Lord sighed. I understand. The Light Reverend nodded. Just as the 2 of them finished speaking, the sound of footsteps could be heard in the distance. The wind howled and the clouds moved. A black-clothed figure strode over. His long hair danced in the wind as black chi surged. Boundless demonic might cause the pressure on the mountain to suddenly drop. Today Xiao no longer exists. His calm words did not carry any threat, as if he was just stating a fact. As his voice fell, the demonic body moved. Scarlet sword edge appeared, and baleful energy covered the sky. The expressions of the West Jade Master and the Light Elder turned serious. They activated their Buddhist Dharma and opened the Buddhist Grand Formation again. In an instant, golden lotuses sprouted from the ground, and the dazzling light of Buddha illuminated West Jade Mountain. Thousands of golden lotuses floated up and down on the mountain, forming a 1,000 lotus world that suppressed the demonic cultivators. Clang! The Buddha and the demonic cultivators clashed. Boundless energy surged in all directions, shaking the mountain. The Light Reverend fell back half a step. The Buddha's light of Buddha illuminated the 1,000 lotus world, and his Buddhist energy flowed endlessly. He barely managed to block the demonic cultivator's sword. On the side, the West Jade Master stepped forward. Her slender hands turned into thousands, and Buddha's light of Buddha rose, sealing the demonic cultivator's chi. The demonic body's expression did not change. He formed a sword finger and blocked the former's palm. Jiming turned back. The Buddha and the demonic cultivator were in a deadlock for a moment. The demonic body's gaze moved, and the darkness was endless. It was as if his humanity had been buried forever, never to return. All of you will be buried with her. The demonic aura around Jiming's body surged, and he slashed out with his sword, forcing the two reverends back. Demonic technique blood flame. The demonic body pointed forward, and a billowing demonic wave swept out. A sea of blood-colored flames violently surged and spread. 3 realms of transcending the world. Bodhisattva 10,000 demonic repentance. The West Jade Master's expression was grave. Her slender fingers twirled, and the merciful Guanin's voice and countenance reappeared. At the same time, the revered light worked together to calm the smoke beacon and the Buddha's radiance, assisting the former. When the two moves collided, the dust billowed. The two Buddhas retreated a few steps, and the corners of their mouths turned red. Skyfall. After one move was finished, another move was launched. The demonic cultivator moved his sword. Demonic chi filled the air, and sword streams poured down. Pieces of the earth collapsed along the way, drowning the Buddha world. The devil of shock, the move of shock. The two Buddhas condensed their vital energy and gathered their chi to block the sword flow. The golden light flickered and was in imminent danger within the blood-colored sword light. At this moment, the half-devil and half-Buddha figures appeared in the distance. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the battlefield. Buddha energy poured into them, helping the two venerables block the sword moves. Supreme Bodhi narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, Amitabha. The half-Buddhist Bodhi chanted and waved the prayer beads in his hand. The Bodhi beads on the half-Buddhist and half-skeleton Buddha beads moved and Buddha energy surged. The ultimate Buddha killer move was activated. Bodhi heart meditation, forgiveness and execution of sins. A golden wave of Buddha energy surged and pressed down on the demonic cultivator. The Light Reverend and the West Jade Master poured their vital energy into the Thousand Lotus Buddha formation at the same time. The 3 Buddhists had arrived, and the Western Jade Master's Buddha light shone brightly. The battle between the Buddha and the demonic cultivator had reached its peak in several thousand years. Sky severing. The demonic cultivator's expression turned cold. His scarlet drill sword moved, and black demonic chi coiled around it. When the 3 Buddhists saw this, they used their moves to block the sword. With a world-shaking explosion, the 3 Buddhists were pushed back dozens of meters, and their robes were dyed red with blood. The unstoppable demonic cultivator's might was hard to measure. The West Jade Master stopped moving and used her Buddha technique again. Lotus Sacred Art, Thousand Lotus Devil Sealing. The Thousand Lotus Buddha world's golden lotus light illuminated the world. The powerful Buddha energy turned into swastika chains that intertwined and wrapped around the demonic cultivator. When the demonic cultivator was bound, the Light Reverend's figure immediately flew out and suppressed the battle. He gathered the Buddha world's power and tried to seal the demonic cultivator's chi-si again. You've all done your best. Just as the Buddha technique was about to succeed, the demonic cultivator suddenly opened his eyes. Bloody light shone brightly, and demonic waves roared out. The swastika chains instantly shattered. With a clang, the scarlet drill sword blocked the battle. Then he slashed with his sword, and 1,000 waves soared into the sky. The sword light flashed past, and blood spurted out like a fountain. A terrifying sword wound appeared on the Light Reverend's left shoulder. He staggered back several steps and vomited blood. A demonic cultivator that couldn't be saved would make the gods and Buddhas grieve. The Buddha's blood that spilled on the Western Jade Mountain was the helplessness of a demonic cultivator. This demonic tribulation was difficult to stop. Heaven's tears. The sword spun, and endless resentment soared into the sky. The bloody waves covered the moon, and the resentment of all living beings spread out. The Thousand Lotus Buddha world showed signs of collapsing. With the resentment on his body, the demonic cultivator moved again. He slashed with his sword, and the blood waves surged. The 3 Buddhists who blocked the attack were once again sent flying. Among the 3 Buddhists, the one who was the least affected by the resentment, Subhuti stopped himself. He circulated half of his demonic chi and leaped forward. The skeleton wrapped around the sword, and the demonic technique appeared once again. Demonic 6 calamities, wind weapon calamity. The wind howled and the palm fell. However, the sword broke the prayer beads, and with a clang, it pierced into the former's body. Ugh! There was a muffled groan, and blood splattered everywhere. Subhoodie's palm didn't stop. He endured the pain in his chest and forcefully counterattacked. Subhoodie, I've kept you here for too long. Today, I'll send you to the western heaven to face Buddha. The demonic cultivator's expression was cold. He condensed demonic chi with his sword fingers and blocked the former's palm. Then, he waved his sword and threw the Buddha away. Subhoodie fell to the ground, and his white robe was dyed red with Buddha's blood. The miserable scene made people sigh. Subhoodie, the Light Reverend, and the Western Jade Lord were shocked. They wanted to help, but suddenly they staggered and vomited blood. The demonic cultivator walked forward step by step. His cold eyes no longer had the peace of the past. The indifference of the world exhausted the demonic cultivator's remaining humanity bit by bit. Everything was irreversible when Qing Ning fell off the cliff. The last obsession of the knowing destiny state cultivator, who had been possessed by the devil, was to bury the world with Qing Ning. Amitabha. At the moment of life and death, Subhoodie staggered to his feet. His demonic chi gradually dissipated, and his Buddha's face became merciful. At the last moment his heart became clear. Subhoodie Heart Meditation. Subhoodie Will. The move of Subhoodie Heart Meditation appeared. 1,000 lotuses responded, and boundless Buddha's power descended to support Subhoodie's final move. The Buddha's power was boundless. The demonic cultivator's eyes narrowed, and he circulated his demonic chi to block the Buddha's move. Heaven and earth trembled, and the entire 1,000 lotus Buddha world collapsed. Rocks tumbled down, and waves of dust filled the air. Ugh! The boundless Buddha's power entered the demonic cultivator's body, and he retreated half a step. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. He was injured for the first time since the battle started. On the other side, as blood gushed out, Venerable Subhoodie fell straight to the ground. His last glance was without resentment or hatred. A Buddha had no regrets in his life. Subhoodie ugh! The Light Reverend's heart ached. His internal injuries flared up again, and his Buddha's robe was dyed red with blood. Now it's your turn. The demonic cultivator suppressed his Buddha's power and walked forward step by step. His sword emitted a bone-chilling killing intent. Just as the two Buddhas were in a life and death crisis, the demonic wheel sea in the central continent trembled. Shocking demonic chi soared into the sky once more. How is this possible? Above the 5 regions, everyone looked in the direction of the demonic wheel sea with shock. Another demonic cultivator was descending. The demonic wheel sea, the underground palace, the seal that had existed for an unknown number of years, had finally reached its limit after the erosion of time, and the Netherworld King's barrier had been forcefully broken. The ruins in the underground palace quickly crumbled. The faint light turned into specks of light that scattered. It could no longer withstand the power of the otherworldly demons. Below the underground palace, the demons from beyond the heavens were constantly bombarding the crumbling seal of the underground palace. Soon it would appear in the world. After a few breaths of time, there was an earth-shattering rumble as the entire underground palace collapsed. Endless demonic chi poured into the sky as a gigantic black pillar of light appeared. The heavens and earth trembled in grief. The heavenly demon opened its eyes, and the void collapsed. Its unparalleled demonic might far surpass the limits of the mortal world. It was so powerful that it made people feel fear. Xian Luo. On Mount Xiao, knowing destiny sensed something. He turned around and looked at the giant demon in the distance. He narrowed his cold eyes and spat out 2 words softly. Chapter 606. In the demonic will sea, the heavens and earth changed drastically. The underground palace was destroyed and Xian Luo appeared. His demonic aura shook the entire human world. Thunder roared and Xian Song cried. The 100-feet-tall otherworldly demon took his first step into the human world. The void within 100 miles collapsed, and the earth shook. It was a shocking scene. After that step, Xian Luo's figure disappeared and headed towards the west. The demonic calamity had truly descended. Wherever the otherworldly demon passed, mountains and cities were destroyed. The cities in the human world were smashed into ruins like gravel. Hundreds of thousands of innocent people died, and their cries shook the heavens. It was an indescribable calamity. Gods grieved and ghosts cried. Heaven and earth sank together. 1 city, 2 cities, 3 cities. The shocking demonic aura was unstoppable. Millions of lives disappeared in the demonic fire. Only destruction could be seen. Complete destruction. The heavens couldn't bear it, and used thunder to cover the cries of the people. The heavy rain covered this tragic scene. On Mount Xiao, Xining's demonic body stood quietly and looked at the destroyed human world. His dual models were cold and had no intention of helping. Behind him, the West Jade Lord and Light Revered couldn't bear it. However, just as they were about to stand up, they vomited blood. Their heavily injured bodies couldn't support themselves. Xining, innocent people. Within the demonic body, the voices of the 49 Taoist leaders sounded in unison. However, there was no response. Xining stood on the mountain and looked down quietly. His expression was still indifferent. Xian Luo appeared in the homeland of West Buddha. Relying on the feeling between his upper body, he searched for Xining's aura. However, for some reason, after entering West Earth, this feeling became weaker and weaker. Although it didn't disappear, it wasn't as clear as before. Xian Luo's expression darkened. His demonic body traversed thousands of mountains and searched for his upper body based on his vague feeling. Prosperous West Earth, the king of demons. When the calamity descended, the human world immediately fell into a disaster. Everywhere the demonic body passed, mountains and rivers collapsed. People were in a terrible situation. Xining. On Mount Xiao, the voices of 49 men and women sounded again. Do you really want to see the human world that you risked your life to protect walk towards destruction? Human world, haha. Xining sneered. There was no emotion in his voice. His cold eyes that looked at the human world no longer had a trace of mercy. Seeing that Ji Ming had completely given up on the human realm, the very high heavens went silent. After a long time, they sighed deeply and said, "Let me out." A strange light flashed in the demon body's eyes. It calmly said, "Think about it carefully. You only have one chance to choose. Once you leave your human body for a long time, your soul will quickly dissipate. The very high heavens cannot sit by and watch as the mortal realm is destroyed." The 49 Taoist leaders spoke. "As you wish." The devil's body responded. Soon after, the resentment around his body dissipated, releasing the trapped consciousness of the very high heavens. In the next moment, figures of men and women appeared on the West Jade Mountain one after another. Each of them had a powerful aura, and each of them was no weaker than a supreme. In the blink of an eye, they merged into one, and a figure in a green and white robe appeared. He had an ordinary face, and there was nothing special about him. However, he was the most powerful existence in the history of Taoism. The Taisher sword flew out and landed in front of the very high heavens. The heavenly weapon was returned to the Taoism's previous leaders. Knowing destiny turned around and didn't say anything more. He coldly looked at the human world that was collapsing in the demonic tribulation. His eyes were cold and piercing. Knowing destiny, I hope that one day you can forgive this human world. On the mountain, the very high heavens said softly. Soon after, his figure faded and disappeared. 10,000 miles away, the 100-feet-tall devil's body was like a deity walking towards the west. Boundless flames of war were emitted from his feet, incinerating the mountains and rivers of the human world. At this moment, the winds and clouds in the human world stirred. The clear saint force spread out, dispersing the spreading demonic flames. Vitality descended, and the mountains and rivers in the sea of flames returned to their original state. The first time Taoists and demons met, the intense confrontation shook the heavens and earth. The very high heavens appeared in the human world. Looking at the billowing demonic aura from afar, his eyes narrowed slightly. "Show yourself, Xian Luo." The very high heavens spoke calmly. "You don't know what's good for you. I'll allow you to do so." As soon as he finished speaking, thunder rumbled in the sky. Amidst the billowing demonic clouds, 100-feet-tall devil's figure descended from the sky. The moment he landed, the earth split apart. "Mixed soul aura. Who are you?" Xian Luo coldly asked. "The very high heavens." The 49 Taoist leaders replied in unison. "You want to stop me?" Xian Luo coldly laughed. or I can kill you and stop this demonic tribulation. The very high heavens calmly said. Hee hee. The cold laughter was filled with mockery. Demonic waves surged around Xian Luo's body, and his 100-feet-tall figure disappeared. In the next moment, the blood-robed true demon appeared. An extremely terrifying pressure caused the surrounding space to collapse. Come, let me see what you're capable of. Xian Luo raised his hand and calmly said. Taisher, come with us. As soon as he finished speaking, the Taisher sword was unsheathed and flew into the hands of the very high heavens. Boundless pressure spread out. The otherworldly demons, the Taoist leaders, started the battle between Taoists and demons again. The sword moved, and a green-white figure flew out. Holding the sword, he spun it, and the sword broke through the demonic barrier. In the first move, the demonic palm flipped, and the airflow surged. The tip of the Taisher sword pierced through, and the Taoist and demon aura clashed. Taoist Chong Wuming. After a moment of stalemate, the very high heavens activated his soul power and absorbed the vast primordial force between the heavens and earth. The Taisher sword hummed, and green light shone brightly as it slashed towards the otherworldly demon. Xian Luo laughed coldly, and the demonic aura on his palm rolled like waves, blocking the power of the heavens and earth. Soon after, he slapped out and sent the otherworldly demon flying. The very high heavens slid back a few steps, and his expression didn't change. The Taisher sword slashed out, and raging winds howled. The unbelievable otherworldly demon and the immeasurable Taoist leaders clashed once again. With a world-shaking tremor, the heavens and earth within hundreds of miles fell continuously. In the battle of world destruction and salvation, although the very high heavens was at a disadvantage, their sword didn't waver at all. The battle between the Taoists and demons became more and more intense. At this level of cultivation, every palm had the power to destroy mountains, and every sword had the sharpness to split the heavens and split the seas. The world-shocking Taisher divine weapon, reinforced by the soul power of the 49 Taoist leaders, illuminated the heavens and earth with green light. Wherever the sword passed, the demonic aura would scatter. However, the demonic body was indestructible, and its physical body was unharmed against the divine weapon. Gentleman's wind. Seeing that the demonic body couldn't be shaken, the sharpness of the Taisher sword in the very high heavens' hands quickly revolved, and the sharp sword aura coiled around the body. Xian Luo used his soul power to block the sword, but he felt the sharpness penetrating the demonic aura, and his physical body felt a tearing pain. There's actually someone with such cultivation in the inner world. Xian Luo's expression turned serious, and his demonic aura increased by 30%, shaking the ever-increasing might of the Tao. Thank you for the compliment, Feng Lei. The Tao energy dissipated, and the demonic aura entered the body. The very high heavens body flickered for a moment, but it soon stabilized. The sword pointed to the sky, and with a loud boom, thunder roared above the 9 heavens. Streaks of green lightning streaked across the void and descended upon the mortal realm. Taoist techniques? You remind me of those people back then. Seeing this, a strange look flashed across Xian Luo's eyes. He flipped his palm to block the green lightning, and an instant later, his figure dashed out and slapped towards the former. We can't compare to the abilities of our ancestors. As the sword and palm clashed, the heavens and earth sank. The very high heavens took half a step back, and Taisher swung his sword to break away from the battle. Man follows earth follows heaven follows Tao, and Tao follows nature. The very high heavens' left hand formed a sword finger, and as it slashed across the sword, the airflow in the surroundings started to churn, and the boundless power of nature started to converge. A Taoist sacred technique appeared in the world. In an instant, green waves engulfed the heavens and earth within a few hundred miles, causing the moon to lose its luster. With the arrival of the sacred technique, Xian Luo flipped his palm to resist the might of the Tao, and his body slid back a few feet. Immediately after, he activated his palm, and the demonic aura devoured the Tao energy. Arg! With a groan, the very high heavens body staggered, and its soul became unstable. Taisher leaned on the ground, and the other leaders of the Taoist sect's aura started to weaken rapidly. and their consciousness started to dissipate. In this demonic calamity, the Taoist was still 1 foot tall, and the demon was 10 feet tall. You've done well, but you're still too weak. Xian Luo stepped forward, and the demonic aura around him gathered on his palm. With his final move, he was going to end this Taoist demon war that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. We can't die like this. At this moment, the very high heaven's eyes that were trembling continuously released a strong will. With a roar, the Taisher sword used its last bit of strength, and it was going to enter the endless realm with the demon. Descent of the 6 Daos, annihilation of all creations, very high forbidden sword. With a step forward, the green-white figure leaped into the sky, and the 49 figures of men and women separated, and then merged back into one. Black and white light shone brightly, and boundless Tao energy swept out. The final move, heaven and earth mourn. Sun and moon ascending heaven. The very high forbidden sword reappeared in the mortal realm, and the heaven and earth gave birth to yin and yang. The boundless Tao world spread out, and the strongest move, the strongest Tao energy, under the illumination of the black and white light, the heaven and earth disintegrated and turned into nothingness. Arg! With the addition of Taisher's primordial power, Xian Luo groaned, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. This was the first time he was injured. In the void, the green-white figure fell from the sky, and after landing, the tip of the sword stabbed into the ground. The leaders of the Taoist sects, who had held on for countless years, were finally reaching the end of their lives. Very good, very high forbidden sword, but it's a pity that it still can't kill me. Xian Luo waved his hand to disperse the Tao energy in his body, looked at the person in front of him, and said coldly, "At least it trapped your footsteps." The very high heavens said weakly, When Xian Luo heard this, his expression turned serious. He saw that around the Tao world, endless green sword lights appeared, crisscrossing, and coming and going without a reason, and without a trace, sealing the entire heaven and earth. To be able to do this, who exactly are you? Xian Luo's expression darkened as he asked. I'm not a person, I'm the very high heavens. With that, the figures of the 49 leaders of the Taoist sects gradually dispersed, and Taisher entered the void, merged into the forbidden formation, and disappeared together. In the next moment, the entire forbidden formation started to operate, and millions of sword lights spiraled out, and the void within 100 miles collapsed continuously, turning into nothingness. The shocking battle shook the heaven and earth for a long time. The 49 leaders of the Taoist sects, with their thousands of years of cultivation, finally protected the mortal realm. On Xiao Mountain, the green-white figure appeared, and he forcefully held on with the last of his soul power. He looked at the black-robed young man on the mountain peak, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Ji Ming, thank you for bringing us back to the mortal realm. If we are fated, we will meet again in the future. With that, the figure of the very high heavens turned into specks of starlight and disappeared from the world. Chapter 607. Above the Taishang sword formation, the black and white sun and moon shone. Boundless power swept down. Sword chi crisscrossed and sealed the void within 100 miles. Xian Luo stood quietly in the sword formation. He looked at the black and white sun and moon in the sky and narrowed his eyes. There was no doubt that the power of the sword formation came from the sun and moon in the sky. If he wanted to break the formation, he had to destroy it. Just as Xian Luo was about to break the formation, knowing destiny, who had been watching the battle for a long time, disappeared silently on West Jade Mountain. Behind him, the Light Elder and the West Jade Lord were stunned. Outside the Taishang sword formation, knowing destiny walked out and looked at Xian Luo in the formation. His dark and deep eyes were calm. It's you, Xian Luo said coldly in the sword formation. He sensed something and looked outside. Long time no see, Xian Luo, knowing destiny said calmly. Xian Luo's eyes flashed with strong killing intent. He said in a low voice, Kid, when I get out, I'll turn you into ashes and you'll never be reincarnated. Now I'll give you the chance. Knowing destiny said indifferently, and stepped into the forbidden formation. The wind and clouds changed. Above the 9 heavens, thunder and lightning flashed across the void, illuminating the hopeless darkness. You came to die. Stupid, Xian Luo said as he looked at the figure walking into the formation. His eyes were full of killing intent. Is that so? With that, Knowing Ming clenched his right hand. The Taisher sword slowly descended from above the formation and entered his hand. In an instant the formation shook. Countless streams of swords flew out. There were thousands, tens of thousands, endless, shaking the world. Seeing this, Xian Luo's face darkened. He said, "You can control this formation?" "It's too early to be surprised," Knowing Destiny said coldly. He clenched his left hand and the red sword appeared. The blood-red blade surged with fierce power. The most ferocious weapon in Zhongzhou state showed its power again. The Taoist and devil weapons appeared. The Black Phoenix showed up. The symbiosis of yin and yang affected the black and white sun and moon in the sky. Majestic power fell and penetrated Knowing Destiny's body. In an instant, the black robe moved and the blade flashed. The two demons started fighting. Sword and palm collided. Boundless waves of fury roared through the skies and split the seas. Blood-red and black clothes fluttered in the wind. This was a battle of mere centimeters, a combination of strength and speed. The moment they clashed, it was already white-hot. The sword current surged and circled around the Knowing Destiny state. With the Taishang Prohibition formation on his body, the Knowing Destiny state's power was greatly enhanced. He wielded his sword with great force. After exchanging several moves, Xian Luo's face turned cold. The demonic essence in his palm grew even stronger, becoming more and more powerful. Knowing Destiny held his sword horizontally and blocked Xian Luo's palm. He took half a step back and said calmly, "Xian Luo, your strength has weakened. Enough to kill you." Xian Luo coldly snorted. He once again urged his devil Yuan to push back the person in front of him. Soon after, he took a step forward, and a blood-colored qi wildly swept out from his body. An unusually powerful pressure caused the surrounding area to shake violently. Skybreaker. The tip of the Knowing Destiny sword turned and streaked across the void. A 1,000-foot-long gust of wind roared out. Wherever it passed, the void cracked and a huge gully appeared in front of him. The demonic might collided, and a gloomy cloud hung over the world. The world-shaking battle between the two demonic beasts caused the terrain, within 1,000 miles, to constantly change. Mountains were destroyed, rivers were overturned, and valleys were born on flat ground. Bloody path. After one move, another was launched. The Knowing Destiny sword flashed past, and a bloody light surged, crashing into Xian Luo. Xian Luo's eyes narrowed. The demonic essence around him surged, and he turned his palm into a fist to block the sword. The two moves collided and bloody light surged. The two demonic beasts facing each other were equally emotionless. The murderous intent in their eyes was bone-chilling. With the support of the Taishang Forbidden Formation, the Knowing Destiny technique reached the peak of his life. He fought the otherworldly demon head-on. Demonic change, burial of 1,000 souls. Seeing that the person in front of him was different from before, Xian Luo furrowed his brows in anger. He flipped his palm, and a bloody light gathered. Within the bloody light, demonic chains crisscrossed, and a swaying sound of death sounded. The demonic body's expression didn't change. The red chain met the demonic light head-on, and the sword was instantly blocked, unable to move forward. At the moment of stalemate, the Taisher sword and Knowing Destiny sword moved. The formation sensed it, and a green sword current followed, breaking through the air. The two swords rose to the sky, and their power increased sharply. However, Xian Luo's palm changed at the same time. Bloody light rose, and demonic chains coiled out, forming a barrier that blocked the incoming sword current. At this moment, the wind and clouds below the formation suddenly changed. Amidst the rumbling, swords soared into the sky, shining with a brilliant green light. Xian Luo's eyes narrowed. He flipped his palm and pushed the person in front of him away. Then he stepped into the air, avoiding the sharp swords. "Can you dodge?" Knowing Destiny said coldly. The Taisher sword spun, and the sword current appeared silently in the sky. It came and went without a trace, drowning the former. The sword current of heaven and earth intersected, and the demonic king was injured for the first time. A smear of bright red flew out, dazzling to the eye. Knowing Destiny's sword had gained the upper hand, but there was no joy on his face. He looked at the figure in the sword current in the sky, and his eyes grew more solemn. At this moment, the pressure in the sky suddenly dropped. Amidst the rolling demonic chi, the demonic body appeared. Xian Luo returned to his original form, and his terrifying aura made the sky and earth fall. The scene in front of Xian Luo was shocking. The mountain-like demonic body brought endless pressure. In front of the demonic body, life was as small as an ant, and could disappear from the world at any time. Seeing this, Knowing Destiny stepped into the void. He spun his two swords, and a phoenix appeared. Yin and Yang opened the formation. The wind and clouds in the sky were chaotic. Two completely different colors, one black and one red, rose up. In the sky, the Tai Chi formation appeared. The sun and moon sensed it, and turned into the eye of the formation, merging into the Tai Chi formation. The formation within the formation was activated, and its power increased sharply. The green sword current suddenly turned black and red. There was no beginning and no end, and it was endless. Skyfall! Knowing Destiny shouted. Majestic sword current fell from the sky, falling into the clouds and slashing toward the otherworldly demon with shocking pressure. Useless struggle. Xian Luo smiled coldly. He flipped his palm and raised it to the sky. The immortal body of the demonic body rose up against the sky, breaking the Skyfall sword. Demonic Eye Sky Burial. The moment the move was broken, Xian Luo's forehead suddenly split open, and a dark green evil eye opened. In an instant, majestic power shone out, silently penetrating Knowing Destiny's body. Ugh! With a muffled groan, Knowing Destiny flew back dozens of feet with blood flowing out of his mouth. He was injured for the first time. At this moment, the formation shook, and a moon-white arrow light appeared in the sky, flying toward Xian Luo's heart. After the arrow passed, a sword appeared. The blue-clothed figure condensed essence sword and slashed toward Xian Luo. At this critical moment, Zhao Liusu and the Lord of Taibai Prefecture appeared, and fought the otherworldly demon. You don't know your place. Xian Luo snorted and smashed the arrow light with his palm. Then, the demonic essence rolled and slapped toward the Lord of Taibai Prefecture. Blood splattered in this move. The completely different power was far beyond that of immortal supremacy. Without the protection of Yin and Yang, the Lord of Taibai Prefecture was severely injured. 9 wheels rotating heaven. The purple-clothed girl flew past, and the Wheel of 9 Souls appeared, turning into a divine weapon and slashing the demon. Xian Luo waved his hand, and a demonic wind surged, blowing the former away. The two supremacies' attacks were like ants trying to shake a tree. They couldn't withstand a single blow. Zhao Liusu and the Lord of Taibai Prefecture stabilized themselves and suppressed their injuries. They wanted to go forward again, but they found the black-clothed figure blocking their way. Get lost if you don't want to die, Ji Ming said indifferently with his back facing the two. Then he looked at Xian Luo and said coldly, again. You can still live after taking a blow from me. I admire you. Xian Luo raised his hand and said arrogantly. I've heard this too many times. Knowing Destiny combined with the sword. The power of the Phoenix demon on the sword soared to the extreme. The shocking sword pressure swept out. In the blink of an eye, within 1,000 miles, countless sword lights gathered rapidly. The pinnacle of the absolute sword appeared. Nirvana. A lifetime of seeing the sword on the sword. Born from the martial arts of the two legendary swordsmen of the eastern region, Knowing Destiny developed his own sword. In the sky, the magnificent sword light was so brilliant that it was like the brilliance of the stars, illuminating the land for thousands of miles, as if it was daytime. In the next moment, the sword light swept out like a meteor. The powerful sword intent destroyed everything in its path. The world was devastated. It was an immeasurable sword. Xian Luo's expression also became serious. He pushed his devil spirit to the limit, and the devil wave rose to the sky and crashed into the shocking sword. When the devil techniques collided, the world shook violently. The destructive power of doomsday spread endlessly. 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, the world dissipated and turned into nothingness. With two muffled groans, The two devils retreated at the same time. The corners of their mouths were dyed red. They were seriously injured after one blow. Seeing the opportunity, Zhao Liusu and the Lord of Taibai Prefecture moved at the same time. The two swords flowed and broke the devil technique. However, at the moment when the two swords were about to reach Xian Luo's body, the devil armor suddenly appeared on Xian Luo's chest and blocked the deadly sword. The sudden change made the three people's pupils shrink. Before they could react, Xian Luo's palm slapped out, and the two people vomited blood and flew out. 100 feet away, the Lord of Taibai Prefecture, who bore most of the power of the palm, was spurting blood from his chest. When his life was about to end, he desperately gathered all his true essence and used his Taoist sword to connect heaven and earth. He used the move of proof supremacy in the past. The path of the mortal world is the ultimate sword. With the enlightenment of the Taoist heart, his cultivation broke through the limits of the mortal world and reached the legendary celestial treading realm. The Lord of Taibai Prefecture was bathed in blood. He was the ultimate sword of the mortal world. The earth-shattering sword was indescribable. There was only one sword left between heaven and earth. It broke through the mortal world and revealed its ultimate sword. The ultimate sword of the Tao destroyed the sky and reached Xian Luo's chest in an instant. The Taoist formation sensed it, and the yin and yang sword radiance appeared out of nowhere. It merged with the Taoist sword and broke the devil armor. The ultimate sword of the Tao resonated with heaven and earth. Xian Luo let out a muffled groan and took a few steps back. The devil armor on his chest blocked the fatal sword. Crack! There was an almost undetectable cracking sound. The combined attack of the 49 Taoist leaders and the current Taoist leader finally showed a flaw in the indestructible devil armor. Xian Luo's expression changed. He gathered devil essence in his palm and sent the person in front of him flying. Swoosh! At this moment, the blood-red sword radiance slashed and cut off an arm. Blood spurted into the sky. Jiming waved his hand and caught the falling demonic body. Devil chi surged in his palm and devoured the power of Xian Luo's broken body. Not far away, the Lord of Taibai Prefecture fell to the ground with a bang. His martial bones were all broken. Blood flowed like a fountain and dyed the ground red. His consciousness gradually dissipated. The Taoist leader looked at the black-robed figure in front of him. Confusion flashed in his eyes. Jiming Marquis, have I returned it to you? The Lord of Taibai Prefecture didn't have time to hear the last words. His arm fell silently. He looked at the mortal world for the last time. He had no regrets. Chapter 608. In the Taisheng Forbidden Formation, Taibai Jingxing died in battle, and his blood dyed the ground red. Knowing Destiny, who stood in the void, didn't change his expression, but the coldness in his eyes intensified. After devouring Xian Luo's arm, the demonic waves around him were as deep as the ocean. On the ground, Zhao Liusu's dress was stained with blood, and her pretty face was pale. The battle between the two demons was way beyond the realm of the mortal world. Even a prime couldn't withstand it. Blood kept dripping from the divine sword formed by the Wheel of 9 Souls. The severely injured prime master of the Zhao family was also in danger. In the void, knowing Destiny's black robe fluttered, and he instantly appeared beside Zhao Liusu. He flipped his palm and knocked her out of the battle. Don't come in again, or don't blame me for being impolite. Knowing Destiny said coldly, and then his figure flew out. Qi Lian condensed his essence and waved his sword. The two demons started fighting again. Demonic qi surged, and the aftermath was horrifying. The boundless airflow was devastating. In the sky, thunder rumbled, and the Tai Chi diagram kept spinning. The light of yin and yang sprinkled on the mortal world. No matter who won this battle, the demons would come to the mortal world. Knowing Destiny, who had dual swords in his hands, combined with the power of the Forbidden Formation, fought the king of the demons. Every move was powerful. On the other hand, Xian Luo's broken arm was surging with demonic qi, and it recovered in a short time. However, the obviously weakened aura showed that the broken arm was still a serious injury for an otherworldly demon. Fourth sword, no choice. Qi Lian waved, and the move of the Tianfu sword master appeared again. Among the 11 moves, it was the easiest to master. Other than Mu Chang'e, Tian Xiang and Fan Xinghong had all used it before. Today, the fourth sword was used again, and the boundless power of death gathered, opening the path to hell. Demonic chi and demonic chi converged, and the aura of death spread between the heaven and the earth. The same sword move, but different sword intent, frightening even gods and ghosts. You disobeyed me. You can't be forgiven. Xian Luo was furious. He flipped his palm, and thousands of birds chirped. Black lightning circled around him, and the powerful aura of destruction shook the netherworld. The two ultimate moves clashed. The strongest demon and the peak sword interweaved into the tragic scene of the two demons fighting. With a clang, the netherworld was destroyed, and Qi Lian broke through the lightning, stabbing at Xian Luo's heart. In the violent collision, the demonic armor blocked the sword. Xian Luo and Luo's hand. Bang! Genesis Supreme blocked the demonic palm, and the yin-yang sword flows converged, scattering most of the remaining power. Formless sword. Forcefully suppressing his injuries, Knowing Destiny rotated the red drill sword in his hand and concentrated it again and again. The sword rotated at a high speed and broke through the flaw left by the Lord of Taibai Prefecture at the risk of his life. Crack! Cracking sounds rang out once more. The demonic armor that had been heavily damaged finally showed signs of collapsing. The demonic palm came again. Knowing Destiny stepped back and slashed out with his sword. With a loud bang, the devil chi surged. Blood spurted out of Knowing Destiny's arm and dyed the blade red. But the momentum of the sword became fiercer. Strike after strike, more and more cracks appeared on the demonic armor in front of Xian Luo's chest. It had already reached its limit. Drink! Seeing that the demonic armor was about to be destroyed, Jiming shouted and stepped into the air. He crossed his two swords, and the power of yin and yang flowed continuously. The Tai Chi formation shone brightly and enhanced the power of the sword. Sword returned to truth. The sword reached the extreme and returned to its original state. The Knowing Destiny body disappeared. The fast, accurate, and focused sword instantly appeared in front of Xian Luo and broke his armor. Ugh! The blade entered Xian Luo's body and blood spurted out. Xian Luo grunted and attacked the Knowing Destiny body with a world-shaking palm. The black clothes flew out and blood splashed all over the sky. Knowing Destiny landed on the ground and stepped back. He stabbed his sword into the ground and steadied himself. The shocking battle between the two demons was extremely tragic. Injuries were exchanged and the battlefield was dyed red. Above the sky, the red and black Tai Chi formation kept rotating and suppressing Xian Luo's power. Knowing Destiny endured his injuries and gathered the power of the Tai Shi sword in his right hand again. Thousands of black and red sword currents spiraled into the sky. The shocking power dissipated everything. At the same time, the red drill sword filled the sky. The evil spirit gathered endless devil chi. The blood-red flame rose rapidly and lit up the sky. In an instant, the two swords surged out and burned the sky and boiled the sea. The sword broke through the sky. The terrifying scene destroyed everything in the formation. Indestructible protection. Seeing the shocking move, Xian Luo also gathered the talent of the Royal Celestial Demon. His bronze skin quickly petrified and turned into the strongest protective divine weapon. There was a shocking explosion and bloodlight shone. The indestructible protection resisted the Taoist demon's power. In the most extreme confrontation, the strongest spear and the strongest shield met for the first time. The black and red sword currents collapsed and couldn't break through the Royal Celestial Demon's power. The two demons both had half the power of the Royal Celestial Demon. At this moment, the difference between their talent and secret techniques was obvious. Xian Luo, who had the memory of the Royal Celestial Demon, showed the shocking power of the Royal Celestial Demon. He was in an invincible position. He struck back with a palm. The black clothes flew out and blood splattered, dyeing 1,000 feet red. After the two moves clashed, the battle between the two demons finally changed. Ugh! Knowing Destiny landed on the ground and vomited a mouthful of blood. The devil chi around him surged. You're already powerless. I'll send you to the west with this move. Xian Luo clenched his fists. Violent thunder and lightning rose into the sky. Black thunder fell, and an unprecedented pressure swept through the entire Taishang Forbidden Formation. Sword. At this moment, the grass and trees on the ground in the distance suddenly swayed and moved silently. The sword intent was ethereal and spread out. 11. In an instant, the sword intent rushed into the forest. It was bright and powerful. It came from afar and quickly broke through the air. Seeing this, Xian Luo immediately changed his move. The black thunder shook the sword. The two sides clashed. Xian Luo took half a step back. The dark thunder and sword light dissipated. Immortal Marshal Ling Yun. At the same time, a beautiful figure appeared in the battle. She flipped her hand and used a palm to refine the wind and clouds. Xian Luo blocked the power of Ling Tian with his arm and took half a step back. His expression became serious. You two name. Mu Chang'e, Lady Chang. Two figures walked out. They both had powerful auras. The void shook. It was difficult to bear their existence. Lady Chang walked to Knowing Destiny and asked, "How are you?" "I'm fine." The demon wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Marquis Knowing Destiny, you've changed after 3 days. Mu Chang'e glanced at the former. He didn't hide the surprise in his eyes. In just 1 month, Knowing Destiny's strength had improved so much. It was really shocking. The demon didn't say anything. He focused on suppressing his injuries and stepped into the void. He looked at Xian Luo and said calmly, "Again." Xian Luo snorted and said, "You only have the power of the royal family, but you don't have the cultivation method of the royal family. The result will be the same no matter how many times you try. Today you'll definitely lose." Heaven's tear. Knowing Destiny's expression didn't change. He waved his red sword, and the resentment of all living beings spread out. It was vast and boundless, merging into the Taishang Forbidden Formation. 6 paths fall together. Thousands of demonic tribulations. Taishang Forbidden Sword. 1 move fell and another rose. The shocking forbidden technique appeared again. Taisher merged into the Tai Chi diagram. The clouds in the sky changed and the world fell. Demon Phoenix's calamity. After the forbidden technique appeared, the demon phoenix roared. Black flames rose from its body and burned the world. The next moment, a pitch-black sword light formed from the demon phoenix. 1 turned into 2, 2 into 3, 3 into infinity. In an instant, tens of millions of black sword lights fell from the sky, destroying everything and falling into the world. The Taishang Forbidden Sword appeared again. Its aura was unparalleled. The Forbidden Formation sensed it and merged all its power into it. The black and white sun and moon left the Tai Chi diagram and turned into 2 sword lights, slashing down at the royal family demon below. The sword that could destroy the world, and the power of the demon phoenix descended. Xian Luo looked at the sky and narrowed his eyes. Demonic chi rolled on his 100-foot demon body. The most powerful technique also rose. True demon change, sky murder. With 1 punch, the void collapsed. The last technique of the 2 demons collided with each other. A terrifying aftershock spread out. The entire formation couldn't withstand it and quickly fell apart. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. The black-robed demon flew out, covered in red. He crashed into one mountain after another in the distance. On the other side, Xian Luo also retreated a dozen steps. Blood spurted from his chest. He was also seriously injured. Seeing this, Nu Chang and Mu Chang'e immediately rushed forward. Using the extreme martial technique, they fought the otherworldly demon again. Changling's secret method, the wind and clouds moved, turning into bolts of light that trapped Xian Luo. In an instant, Mu Chang'e used the heavenly fault sword to turn 11. The sword pierced through his body and heart. Ugh! With a muffled grunt, Xian Luo staggered, his demonic energy unstable. Sky-shattering. The Black Phoenix roared. Knowing Destiny's figure appeared. Taisher slashed and beheaded him. The head of the demon body flew up, blood spurting hundreds of feet. Just as the 3 thought they had succeeded, the third eye on Xian Luo's forehead shone down again. It passed through Knowing Destiny's body and came out. Ugh! Knowing Destiny's figure shook violently and fell straight down, crashing into the ground. Mu Chang'e's expression darkened. He immediately stepped forward. The heavenly fault spun, sword light rose, and formed a heavenly sword that slashed at Xianluo's head. Xianluo opened his eyes and blocked the sword light. He stopped fighting and flew into the sky. Soul capture. At this moment, Nua's figure flew out. Her slender hand shone with light. Soul capture Xianluo. The light swept past. Xianluo's eyes dimmed slightly. He suppressed the feeling of dizziness and charged out of the bindings, disappearing into the sky. Boy, treasure the few days you have left. When this seat recovers, you will pay me back 100 times over. The last words echoed in the world. Below, knowing destiny staggered to his feet. Looking at the disappearing demonic figure, his eyes were unusually cold. Moments later, knowing destiny walked in front of the demonic body. He quickly swallowed the demonic body to heal his wounds. There are parts of his memories here. Maybe they will be of help to you. Nu walked forward and handed over the part of Xianluo's demonic soul she had absorbed. Knowing destiny took it. After a moment of silence he said, "Many thanks." The battle ended. Just as the three were preparing to leave, 3 dragons pulled a palanquin far away under the moon. The strange scene attracted everyone's gaze. Seeing this, knowing destiny's body shook. Ripples finally appeared in his eyes that had been calm. Nu sighed softly and said, "You go." Now there was no reason for the inner world to keep knowing destiny. It was impossible to keep him. Knowing destiny didn't hesitate anymore. He stepped forward and was about to leave. Ning Chun. At this moment, Zhao Liusu walked over with Yin in the distance and shouted anxiously, "Don't you keep your promise?" Knowing destiny stopped and immediately flew in front of the two. Without saying a word, he took the little girl and flew into the sky. Chapter 609. The starry sky was illusory and vast. Numerous large stars shone brightly, and it was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. In the distance, the 3 dragon corpses were pulling the palanquin. They were so fast that it was hard to see them with the naked eye. Behind the palanquin, the black phoenix flashed and caught up. It was hard to tell the time in the starry sky. Knowing destiny, who had been chasing for a long time, was getting further and further away from the palanquin. The demonic phoenix transformed and knowing destiny appeared. He shouted and the demonic aura in his body surged out. It turned into demonic chains and rushed forward, trying to pull the palanquin and the dragon corpses. Between the stars, the demonic chains crisscrossed through the void and wrapped around the dragon corpses. It was shocking. However, the palanquin only paused for a moment. Then, divine light shone and broke the demonic chains. It moved forward quickly. The demonic body looked serious. He held Yiner's hand and chased after the palanquin again. After countless days and nights of running, the little girl beside knowing destiny didn't look well. The tiredness on her pretty little face was hard to hide. As time went by, the phoenix vitality in the demonic body gradually dried up. As the speed slowed down, it became harder for him to take care of Yiner. A few days later, in a strange starry area, fog blocked the way. It stretched for half of the starry area. It was very shocking. The 3 dragon corpses pulled the palanquin into the fog and went away. Knowing destiny followed them and chased after them without stopping. The chase lasted for several months and crossed thousands of miles. Finally, on the 9th month they had to stop. The palanquin disappeared in the depths of the starry area. Knowing destiny stopped on a planet with life. The phoenix vitality in his body was almost dried up. In the strange starry area, life planets could be seen everywhere. Although they were of different sizes, they all had humans. Ning Chun, are we still chasing? On the planet, Yiner looked up and asked tiredly. Ning Chun was silent. After a while he said calmly, "Let's rest for now. No more chasing." Oh. Yiner nodded obediently and didn't ask any more questions. Ning Chun glanced at the shining life stars in the sky above the big star. His eyes narrowed slightly. And then he took the little girl and walked toward the human city on the big star. Although he didn't feel a strong aura on this planet, the looming pressure in this starry area was definitely not weaker than that of Xianluo. He just didn't know which life planet such a terrifying existence was on. It seemed like there were too many things in the outland that he did not know about. The phoenix body had left for so long, He wondered if she had gained anything. The Jade Lake divine water was not in the inner realm. The only hope was to find it in the outer realm. I can't walk anymore. After taking a few steps, Einer looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar figure beside her and said timidly, I can't walk anymore. When Ningchen heard this, he didn't say anything. He stopped, carried the little girl on his back, and continued to walk forward. Feeling the familiar warmth, Einer's tense body finally relaxed. Hugging the former, she fell into a deep sleep. Ningchen stepped forward. His expression didn't change at all. His eyes were as calm as the abyss. The demon that gave up the last bit of warmth would never be able to return to the past. All that was left was the memory of the promise. Jinxi City was an ancient city on the Red Luan planet. Ningchen brought Einer along as they walked on the streets. There weren't many people in the city. The ancient city seemed a little quiet. The light drizzle made the ancient city seem even more hazy. Xiaoyu Chang and was a strange and picturesque restaurant. Ningchen walked in and ordered some light dishes. Then he gently woke the little girl up. In the restaurant, there was singing and dancing. Beautiful dancers with graceful figures danced on the high stage. A veiled woman played the zither. The guests below were mesmerized. The dishes were served in a short while. Einer ate happily. Ningchen sat beside her and added some dishes to the little girl from time to time. However, he didn't eat a single bite. Slow down. Seeing the little girl eating too quickly, Ningchen calmly reminded her. Einer raised her head and smiled brightly. Then she continued to eat. In the big restaurant, there were two people, one big and one small, who didn't look at the stage. The small one was too busy, and the big one wasn't interested. Qingfeng, give that table a pot of newer hong. Say it's a gift from the restaurant. On the second floor, in a quiet private room, behind the bead curtain, a man whose appearance couldn't be seen clearly was trimming the flowers as he spoke. Yes. A young man in blue clothes walked out and said respectfully. Qingfeng went downstairs and took a pot of newer hong worth 100 gold from behind the counter. Then, he walked to the table of the big and small guests and put it down respectfully. He said, Sir, this pot of newer hong is a gift from the restaurant. We don't accept money. Please enjoy. After saying that, Qingfeng bowed respectfully again and turned to leave. Ningchen's gaze shifted to the second floor as a brilliant light flashed in his eyes. He hadn't noticed it before, but it turned out that there was such a person in this restaurant. Thank you, Ningchen said. You're welcome. A calm voice came from the private room on the second floor. The two people's voices weren't loud. They were quickly drowned out by the singing and dancing. In the restaurant, none of the guests heard them. They continued to do their own things. Ningchen opened the wine pot. The fragrance of newer hong spread out. Einer raised her head and glanced at it. Then, she lost interest and continued to eat. However, the fragrance of the wine that the little girl wasn't interested in attracted the attention of many people in the hall. A tall and sturdy man walked up and said with a deafening voice, Brother, would you like a cup of wine? Ningchen raised his head. His dark eyes were emotionless. He pushed the wine cup in his hand forward without saying a word. Seeing Ningchen's gaze, the man's body froze. A chill unconsciously rose in his heart. He immediately apologized and quickly left. Ningchen turned his head and didn't pay much attention to him. He took back the wine cup. As he drank, he added some vegetables to the little girl's bowl from time to time. I'm full. Not long after, Einer put down her bowl and chopsticks. Ningchen nodded lightly and said, Rest for the night. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Einer replied. She jumped off the stool and stretched out her little hand. You've grown up. You can't always hold my hand like a little girl. Go pay for the food and then book 2 rooms. Ningchen took out a silver and put it in the little girl's hand. His expression was slightly cold. Einer wrinkled her little nose unhappily. She took the silver and ran to the counter to pay the bill. Shopkeeper uncle, pay the bill and also 2 rooms. Okay. Behind the counter, a well-dressed middle-aged man with a big belly took out an abacus with a smile. He counted a few times and replied, A total of 70 taels of silver. So expensive. Einer's little face was shocked when she heard that. Heh. The shopkeeper didn't mind. He smiled and said, "Little girl, the food isn't worth much. However, there are only 10 rooms in Xiaoyachang'an. Moreover, each room is carefully decorated. Of course, the price will be more expensive." "I want 2 rooms." Ningchen walked forward, took out another piece of silver, and put it down as he said indifferently. The shopkeeper took the silver. The smile on his face became even brighter. He said, "Young master, follow me." The 3 of them went upstairs. In the adjacent room, the shopkeeper opened the door and welcomed the 2 of them in. Ningchen looked at the signs hanging on the 10 rooms and narrowed his eyes. As expected, the background of this restaurant was not simple. There was a sign hanging on each of the 10 rooms. It represented the name of the room. It didn't look special. However, Ningchen, who cultivated 4 heavenly tomes, knew the meaning of each sign. There were 10 heavenly tomes. Xiaoyachang, and also had 10 rooms. The strange thing was that the names of the 10 rooms were exactly the same as the names of the 10 heavenly tomes. It was too much of a coincidence. Ningchen looked back at the figure in the bright room again. His eyes flashed. Was it the bright volume? However, the bright volume was obviously destroyed. Moreover, this person didn't have the aura of the heavenly tomes. It was strange. Opposite, in the bright room, the man behind the bead curtain felt the former's gaze. He smiled faintly and said nothing. He continued to trim the flowers and plants in front of him. In the inner realm, on Xiao Mountain, the night was quiet. At this moment, green light gathered and Piaoshu appeared. Above the void, a dragon gate appeared. From the dragon gate, a beautiful figure in a green dress slowly flew out. Her eyes were closed and green light floated around her. Her vitality was almost undetectable. Just as she landed, Piaoshu suddenly staggered. She vomited a mouthful of blood, dyeing the ground red. Piaoshu, Bilingling appeared. When she saw the beautiful figure in green floating in the air, her eyes trembled violently. Save her. That was her last order before she fainted. Piaoshu couldn't hold on any longer and fell straight down. Bilingling supported her. Then, with a turn of her hand, a golden light flashed and swept Qing Ning, who was in the green light, towards the clear sky Lotus Peak. On the clear sky Lotus Peak, the West Jade Master was meditating and healing. When she felt the 3 people's auras, her eyes opened. She turned into a stream of light and appeared before them. "Master," Bilingling said with an anxious look on her face. The West Jade Master stepped forward and took Qing Ning's body. After checking, a serious look flashed across her eyes. "Go to the 7 Buddha Heavenly Pass." With that, the West Jade Master waved her hand and swept the 3 of them towards the highest point of the clear sky Lotus Peak. "Master, how is Qing Ning?" In the 7 Buddha Heavenly Pass, a sea of fire rose. It was a shocking sight. On the rock, Bilingling looked worriedly at the beautiful figure floating in the air. Piaoshu gave 70% of the clear sky lotus breath to Qing Ning and barely managed to keep her alive. However, Qing Ning's injuries are too severe. Adding on the fact that the demonic energy has entered her body, her heart meridians are heavily damaged. She could still be in danger at any time. The West Jade Master said with a grave expression. "Is there a way?" Bilingling asked again. "Use the regenerative power of the clear sky lotus breath to protect Qing Ning's heart meridians. At the same time, use the Buddha fire in the 7 Buddha Heavenly Pass to reforge her Buddha body. There may be a chance." At this point, the West Jade Master paused and then continued. "If Qing Ning wakes up, hide the news that the Jiming Marquis is still alive. As for the Chongling female supreme, I will send someone to warn her. Jiming Marquis and Qing Ning have gone through this great calamity. If Qing Ning can use this chance to enter the great perfection realm, it will be a great fortune amidst misfortune." Bilingling nodded. After a moment of hesitation, she asked, "Master, where is Piaoshu?" The West Jade Master's expression turned cold. She acted on her own and violated the laws of the West Jade. When her injuries recover, send her to the Wall of Penitence for 60 years. Chapter 610. At night the moon shone brightly. In the guest room of Xiao Yuchang, Ning Chen stood in front of the window and looked at the starry sky. Gradually, Ji Ming's spiritual altar shone brightly. His divine soul was ethereal, and his spiritual consciousness rushed to the starry sky. In the boundless starry sky, demonic waves rolled. The shadow in black was born out of his physical body and stood in the starry sky, looking for traces of the palanquin. The starry sky was vast. Endless fog occupied half of the starry sky, making it hard to see clearly. Only the life planets were so dazzling in the starry sky. After searching for a long time, there was no trace of the palanquin. The demonic qi gathered, and his divine soul was ready to return. Demon! At this moment, a majestic voice sounded in the starry sky. The next moment, a seven-colored light rolled, and a giant hand appeared, grabbing at Ji Ming. The demonic qi changed and condensed into a shadow in black. It formed a sword with his fingers, and shook the giant hand falling from the starry sky. With a bang, the light and demonic qi surged. In the shocking aftermath, the giant hand fell again. Knowing destiny retreated, the demonic qi around him converged into a black divine sword, which slashed out fiercely. After a moment, the giant hand and the sword collided. The starry sky rumbled and the aftermath hit. Ji Ming retreated more than 10 feet. The demonic qi shook violently. On the other side, the little finger of the giant hand was cut off. The airflow was overflowing. Oh! A sigh of appreciation sounded. The seven-colored light rose, and the giant hand returned to its original state. It slapped down with endless pressure. Ji Ming squinted his eyes and pointed with his left hand. The demonic qi rolled and swept across the sword. The demonic qi reached its peak again. Just as the two attacks collided again, the sound of strings came from the life planet below. The sound waves rippled and collided with the giant hand falling from the sky. Ning Chen saw the opportunity and stepped on the ground. The demonic qi gathered together with his divine soul. In the guest room of Xiao Yuchang, in Jinxi City, Ning Chen's eyes flashed. The treading immortal realm was beyond his knowledge. Dong dong. Outside the room, there was a knock on the door. After a few knocks, the door creaked open. Einer stood in front of the door pitifully and said, "I can't sleep." Ning Chen looked at the little girl and frowned slightly. Didn't this girl always sleep well? In the past, he couldn't even wake her up. After pondering for a moment, Ning Chen thought of a reason and said, "Come in first." Hearing this, Einer walked into the room and closed the door. She poured a cup of tea and handed it to the former. She said sweetly, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" "Not sleepy." Ning Chen took the tea and said with a calm expression, "Sleep here. I'll guard you by your side and won't leave." Einer nodded her head vigorously and climbed onto the bed at the side. She closed her eyes and the exhaustion on her small face could not be concealed. Ning Chen went forward and pulled the blanket over the little girl. He patted her gently so that the little girl could sleep peacefully. He understood that Einer was unable to sleep because he had abandoned her once. In this unfamiliar place, he was the only person she knew. If he left again, the little girl would truly be left without anyone to rely on. In her deep sleep, Einer's small hand subconsciously grabbed the corner of the clothes of the person beside her. Only then did the nervousness on her small face ease up a little. Wrong. Ning Chen was silent. He knew he had taken the wrong path. But even though he knew it was wrong, there was no turning back. Within the guest room, the man behind the beaded curtain was tidying up the flowers and plants in the room. His lips curved. This strange devil had piqued his interest. He was clearly a devil, and had already lost his humanity. But he was still able to rely on his memories to determine what he should do. He was very curious as to how long this weak and emotionless reason could last. The word love was something that could harm others if taken too lightly. But if taken too seriously, it could harm oneself. To be able to make a person who still had a little bit of reason become a devil, it could be seen just what kind of painful past this person had experienced. Pavilion Master. The shopkeeper respectfully bowed outside the guest room. "How is this month's profit? Did you reach the goal I set for you?" asked the man behind the beaded curtain. "I made a profit of 4,900 taels. However, The top-grade maiden's red you gave me today is worth 1,000 taels of silver. There are only 3 days left in the month. Making another 1,100 taels of silver is as difficult as ascending to the heavens, said the shopkeeper. Since I've already set my goal, I can't change it. Think of a way yourself, said the man calmly. Pavilion master, that's impossible, said the shopkeeper awkwardly. Is that something I should worry about? I don't care what method you use. I only care about the final result. If you can't reach your goal in the end, the difference will be deducted from your salary, said the man indifferently. Oh. The shopkeeper's voice faltered. He helplessly said, Pavilion master really is kind-hearted. He sympathizes with his subordinates. You can leave. The man didn't seem to mind. The shopkeeper once more respectfully bowed and left. Outside dawned Moon Chang, and the night sky gradually brightened. Ning Chun had been sitting by the bed the entire night, watching over the little girl who was sleeping soundly. He was quietly thinking about some things. When the sun rose, Ener woke up. She opened her eyes and saw the figure sitting by the bed. She sweetly smiled. Get up and wash up. We'll go down and eat something in a bit, said Ning Chun. Okay. Ener sat up and rubbed her eyes. She got off the bed and began to wash up. It was always troublesome for a little girl to dress up. Ning Chun didn't know anything about it, and couldn't help. Thus he silently stood by the side and watched. An hour later, the two of them went downstairs. Ener tugged on the former's sleeve, and curiously sized up the entire restaurant with her large eyes. There weren't many customers in Don Moon Chang, and in the early morning, on the high platform, there was only a veiled woman playing the zither. The melodious zither music reverberated in the hall. Ener ordered a table of dishes and happily ate them. Ning Chun quietly sat by the side, drinking tea while waiting. Eat. Ener put a small piece of vegetable in her mouth, and placed it in front of the former. I'm not hungry. You can eat. Ning Chun calmly replied. Oh. Ener placed the vegetable in her mouth, and cutely smiled before continuing to eat. Hong Wan, go toast the two guests. Today, we'll choose heartless nightmarish dream. The man's voice sounded from the bright room. Yes. On the high platform, the veiled woman stopped playing the zither and responded. Shortly after, she walked to the wine rack, and took a pot of wine before walking towards the two of them. Behind the counter, the manager's smiling face suddenly froze as if 1,000 knives were cutting his heart. Heartless nightmarish dream. 3,000 taels of silver. It didn't matter if the owner opened her mouth. Don Moon Chang, and's 1 month's profit was gone. It seemed like he couldn't keep his salary anymore. Young master, I'll toast you. Hong Wan poured a cup of wine, and placed it in front of the black-clothed young man, as she softly said. Ning Chun received the wine, and drank it in one gulp, before placing the cup on the table. Little sister, I'll toast you. Hong Wan poured another cup, and placed it in front of the little girl, who was immersed in eating. Ener raised her head and giggled. Just as she stretched out her hand, she was hit. She's still young and can't drink. I'll drink this cup for her. Ning Chun took the wine cup, and spoke in an indifferent tone. Soon after, he drained it in one gulp. On the second floor, in the guest room named Ming, the man revealed a faint smile, and didn't say anything else. In the lobby of the first floor, Hong Wan was toasting people, causing the few guests in the hall to raise their eyebrows. For so many years, Miss Hong Wan had never toasted anyone, not even the royal family. Who exactly was this black-clothed young man? Ning Chun didn't care about other people's gazes. Ener's heart wasn't ordinary either as she immersed herself in eating. Whoever wanted to look could look. On the side, Hong Wan subconsciously moved half a step closer to the little girl. Previously, she couldn't feel it, but after approaching the black-clothed young man, she discovered the bone-chilling coldness from the latter, causing her to involuntarily shiver. Sister, I'll pour the wine. You can go back. Seeing the former's unnatural appearance, Ener revealed a smile. Hong Wan's eyes revealed a trace of difficulty. Although she didn't want to stay here, she didn't dare to disobey the owner's order. Come back. At this moment, the man's voice sounded from the second floor. Yes. Hong Wan respectfully bowed and left. That sister must be very pretty. Looking at the former's exquisite figure, Einar enviously said. Not as pretty as you, Ningchen calmly said. Hearing this, Einber's eyes curved as she happily said, You really know how to talk. On the second floor, in an elegant room, Hong Wuan sat in front of a mirror and removed her veil. What entered one's eyes was a ghastly sword scar that was several inches long on her fair jade-like skin. Her originally perfect appearance was instantly destroyed and appeared somewhat frightening. Hong Wuan, is one's appearance really that important? A calm voice sounded and asked. A woman's appearance is more important than her life. Hong Wuan revealed a sad expression. Unfortunately, I was a bit late back then. The calm voice contained a trace of regret. Hong Wuan is unable to repay the owner's life-saving grace. As for my appearance, a trace of sadness flashed through Hong Wuan's eyes as she said, This might be Hong Wuan's fate. Actually, it's not that there's no way. The voice from the room changed the topic and said, The reason why the scar on your face can't heal is because the pure sword intent on the wound is difficult to disperse. I don't dare to forcefully heal it, or else it might cause your injury to worsen. However, if there's an even stronger swordsman who is willing to remove the remnant sword intent on your wound, I'm confident that I can restore your appearance. Hearing this, Hong Wuan's eyes trembled. However, a moment later, the brilliance in her eyes dimmed once again as she said, Even with the owner's ability, you're powerless. Who else in this world has such ability? Perhaps the black-clothed young man you toasted earlier can do it. On the second floor in the guest room, the man who was trimming the flowers spoke once again. In terms of martial arts, I'm not afraid of anyone. However, in terms of the sword, I'm inferior to him. Speaking up to here, the man looked downstairs and indifferently said, However, the possibility of him helping you is too slim. Devils were ultimately heartless. Their current rationality was merely a reflection of their memories. This reflection could be abandoned at any time. All living beings in the world had thousands of long-cherished wishes. They prayed to gods and Buddha, but when had anyone ever heard of praying to devils? Chapter 611. Jinxi City, Xiaoyachang'an. On the third day, after resting for 2 days, Einar's complexion was much rosier, much better than before. Shopkeeper Uncle Bill, please. After Einar finished her meal, she ran to the counter and took out her little brocade pouch as she said sweetly, 5 taels of silver. The shopkeeper listlessly said. Einar took out a small ingot from her pouch and handed it over. Shopkeeper Uncle, what's wrong? We're going bankrupt. The shopkeeper was in a terrible mood. Oh. Einar responded and turned to leave. The shopkeeper looked up and asked in confusion. Aren't you going to ask why? Why should I ask? A trace of doubt appeared in Einar's big eyes. I can't help. The shopkeeper was speechless. What a strong logic. There were strange people every year, but there were especially many this year. The unpredictable floor master was already enough to give him a headache. And now there was another young man, who hadn't spoken more than 10 sentences in 3 days, and a little girl, who could choke people to death with her words. How could he still do business? Einar's sister is going out to buy rouge and face powder. Are you coming? Hong Wuan gently asked as she walked down the stairs with her face still covered. Yes. Einar's eyes brightened as she vigorously nodded. Wait for me. After speaking, Einar ran to the second floor and knocked on the door of the sky room. She shouted, Ning Chun, I'm going to buy rouge and face powder with Sister Hong Wuan. With a creak, the door opened. Ning Chun looked at the little girl in front of him and asked, Do you still have money? Yes. Einar took out her pouch and shook it. Ning Chun waved his hand and took out a small ingot and placed it in the little girl's pouch. He softly said, Go. Einar happily smiled and turned to run down. In Jinxi City, on a street that wasn't too bustling, 2 girls, one big and one small, were walking forward to buy some things that women needed. Sister Hong Wuan, why are you always wearing a veil? Einar asked in confusion. Hearing this, Hong Wuan's expression dimmed. It's nothing, it's just a habit. Oh. Einar's attention was attracted by the face powder stall. She responded absent-mindedly and jogged over. Hong Wan laughed at herself and suppressed the fluctuations in her heart before following him. Boss, how much is this box of rouge? Eener picked up a small mahogany box, opened it and smelled it. 1 tael for 2 boxes, the stall owner said with a gentle expression. So cheap. Eener was slightly surprised. Shortly after, she looked at the woman beside her and pouted. Sister Hong Wan, look at how honest the boss is. A single room in your restaurant can buy dozens of boxes of rouge. Hong Wan revealed a helpless expression and said, This is the price set by the pavilion master. I can't do anything about it. Young lady, do you want some rouge? It's homemade, so it's definitely not harmful to your body, the stall owner said honestly. I want 5 boxes. No, 10 boxes. Eener gestured with her fingers. Give me 10 boxes too. It just so happens that the other sisters in the building can also use them, Hong Wan softly said. All right, please wait a moment, I'll wrap it up for you. The stall owner revealed a joyful expression. Although a box of rouge didn't earn much money, the 2 young ladies wanted so much at once. It would still allow the family to live more comfortably. At this moment, the ground rumbled and trembled as a group of armored horses galloped past. The man in the lead wore a silver-white battle armor and had a heroic bearing. He was extremely extraordinary. Move aside. As the armored horses galloped over, the pedestrians on the street all moved aside. The stalls also hurriedly packed up and made way for them. Seeing this, Eener and Hong Wan also hurriedly helped the stall owner pack up and retreated. However, the armored horses were too fast, and they couldn't dodge in time. Seeing that they were about to collide, a trace of anger appeared on Eener's small face. Her fair and tender hand grabbed the warhorse of the man in the lead and flung it away. With a bang, the warhorse flew several meters away and collided with dozens of armored horses behind it. Instantly, both men and horses were thrown off their feet and were in a sorry state. On the warhorse, the silver-armored man jumped up and furrowed his brows. With a clap of his hand, a spear appeared in his hand, and he directly pierced it towards the little girl in front of him. A 9th-grade expert had an extraordinary cultivation and was much stronger than Eener. Just as the spear was about to reach her, a blood-colored sword glint revolved in front of the little girl and shook the spear away from her chest. Eener, seeing that the little girl was attacked, Hong Wan became anxious and immediately went forward to check if the former was injured. I'm fine, Eener said in a delicate voice. Just as she was about to speak, her pupils shrank. Seeing the whip swing over, the unprepared Hong Wan in front of Eener was immediately hit and sent flying. The veil on her face was also shaken off. Ah! A cry of alarm sounded from the crowd, as if they were frightened by the sinister scar on Hong Wan's face. Hong Wan, who had fallen to the ground, coughed out a mouthful of blood and struggled to get up. However, she ignored the heavy injuries on her body and covered her face with her hands in panic. Sister Hong Wan. Eener hastily ran over and helped the former up. The silver-armored man in the lead looked at the frightening woman on the ground with disgust and said, Attacking an official of the imperial court is an unforgivable crime. Capture both of them and throw them into the death cell. Yes. Behind him, 2 armored cavalry soldiers respectfully received the order and stepped forward to capture the 2. Eener was furious and was about to resist when suddenly, the atmosphere on the street stagnated. 2 figures appeared at the same time in a cool breeze and arrived in front of the crowd in a few steps. Ning Chun, House Master, Eener and Hong Wan exclaimed in surprise. Kill them all, Mo Xiaoi calmly asked. Up to you. Ning Chun walked in front of Eener and carefully examined her before indifferently saying, Then let's kill them all. Mo Xiaoi moved and a silver thread in his hand pierced through the crowd. In an instant, 17 cavalrymen were killed. There was no blood and no miserable cries. One figure after another directly fell to the ground. From beginning to end, no one had seen what had happened. On the street, the pedestrians were shocked and panicked. Housemaster, Hong Wan has caused trouble for you. Hong Wan stood up and lowered her head to apologize. They can't be considered trouble. Let's go back, Mo Xiaoi said with a faint smile on his face. Okay. Hong Wan nodded. Let's go. After the two left, Ning Chen looked at the little girl beside him and said, Wait a moment. Iner jogged to the rouge stall and helped the owner pick up the rouge that had scattered on the ground. Soon after, she secretly stuffed the small piece of gold in her small brocade pouch into the owner's hand and whispered a few words to him. The rouge stall owner's eyes were filled with tears as he repeatedly thanked her. Ning Chen quietly stood to the side and saw everything, but he didn't say anything. After finishing what she had to do, Iner jogged back and held the hand of the person beside her with a smile. The two of them left, and on the street, the crowd subconsciously made way for them. No one dared to stop them. Ning Chen, thank you for saving me, Iner said happily on the way back. You're welcome, Ning Chen replied. Just now, there was a red light that flew out of my body. Did you leave it behind? Iner continued to ask. Yes. Ning Chen didn't deny it and replied. Ning Chen, can you promise me something? Iner's mood suddenly became low. Speak, Ning Chen calmly said. Can you not leave me alone in the future? Iner raised her head and asked nervously. Ning Chen was silent. After a long time he nodded and said, yes. Only then did a smile appear on Iner's face, and she tightly hugged Xiaoshuo's hand. In Xiaoyachang'an, when the two of them returned, Hong Wan had already returned to her room to apply medicine. Iner jogged upstairs and said, I'm going to see Sister Hong Wan. Ning Chen nodded and didn't say anything. In the Ming room a voice sounded. Friend, how about we go upstairs and talk? Hearing this, Ning Chen walked upstairs. In the Ming room, the owner of Xiaoya restaurant, who was wearing a gorgeous brocade robe, was fiddling with the flowers and plants in front of her. Seeing the former walking over, she walked to the table and calmly said, Please. Ning Chen sat down and still didn't speak. Brother, how should I address you? Mo Xiaoai poured 2 cups of wine and pushed 1 cup in front of the former. Ning Chen. I'm Mo Xiaoai, the owner of Xiaoyachang'an restaurant. What's the matter? Ning Chen raised his cup and went straight to the point. I have a matter to discuss with you. Brother Ning, please state your conditions. Mo Xiaoai didn't beat around the bush and directly said. Is it related to Miss Hong Wan? Ning Chen faintly asked. Brother Ning is really smart. The sword wound on Hong Wan's face can only be healed by a top swordsman. I'm not good with swords, so I want to ask for your help. Mo Xiaoai seriously said. Why is the owner so sure that I have the ability? Ning Chen narrowed his eyes and asked. Divine sense leaving the body and devil sword fighting, Mo Xiaoai slowly said. Hearing this, a dangerous glint flashed through Ning Chen's eyes. He said, Since the owner knows that I'm a devil, why do you still want to help? Brother Ning is a guest of Xiaoyachang'an. Helping you is something I should do. As for whether you're a devil or not, it doesn't seem to have much to do with me. Mo Xiaoai calmly said. Who is that person? Ning Chen asked. Mo Xiaoai, the master of Mo planet, the strongest expert of Hong Wan star field. Mo Xiaoai honestly said. Hong Wan star field? Ning Chen slightly frowned. Brother Ning, there's no need to doubt it. This isn't a coincidence. Hong Wan star was once the greatest star in Hong Wan star field, but it later declined. Hong Wan came from that ancient star. Mo Xiaoai explained. And who are you? Ning Chen coldly asked. Someone who poses no threat to Brother Ning. Mo Xiaoai replied. I want to know if the owner's conditions are true. Ning Chen didn't ask any more questions. Brother Ning, there's no harm in asking. Mo Xiaoai replied. I want to know the whereabouts of the Jade Lake Divine Water. Ning Chen slowly said. Hearing this, Mo Xiaoai's wine cup paused for a moment before returning to normal. The Jade Lake Divine Water belonged to the Queen Mother of the West in ancient times. Mo Xiaoai looked at the young man in front of him and calmly said, Brother Ning, do you know where the Queen Mother of the West originally came from? I don't know. Ning Chen shook his head. It's Hong Wan star. Mo Xiaoai seriously said. Crack. The wine cup shattered. Wine spilled out of Ning Chen's hand and dripped down his palm. Things couldn't be so coincidental. If it happened once or twice, it could be explained as a coincidence. However, every time the immortal corpse patrolled, it was always inextricably linked to him. Why? Chapter 612. In the bright room, the two of them had already conversed for over an hour. The Dawn Moon brothel master seemed to know everything about the Red Luan star field. In a short hour, Ning Chen had a rough understanding of this star field. Ning Chen thought for a long time and said, "One last thing. Is there a way to bring the dead back to life?" A strange light flashed through Imo Shaoai's eyes. He nodded slowly and said, "Maybe. Legend has it that in ancient times, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm tried to bring a woman back to life. The Queen Mother of the West's immortal peach tree was taken away by the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm at that time." Ning Chen frowned and said, "The Eastern Celestial Realm? Is there more than one celestial realm?" "Yes." Imo Shaoai nodded and said, "The galaxy is so vast that even true immortals can't cross it. It's not strange that there are 4 celestial realms. However, the Eastern Celestial Realm is the strongest among the 4 celestial realms. At that time, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm was the strongest person in the 4 celestial realms. No one could defeat him." "Did the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm pass down the method to bring the dead back to life?" Ning Chen asked. "No." Imo Shaoai shook his head and said, "After the 4 celestial realms were destroyed, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm disappeared. Since then, no one has seen him. The method to bring the dead back to life also disappeared." Ning Chen was silent. If that was the case, the Celestial Palace should be in the Eastern Celestial Realm. However, who was that white figure with an aura comparable to the Nether King? The Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm? "Brother Ning, if you want to know more about the Celestial Realm, you can go to Emo Planet. In the Red Luan Galaxy, Lord Emo is the person closest to becoming a true immortal." Imo Shaoai suggested. "Thank you." Ning Chen nodded. "It's a fair trade. Brother Ning, shouldn't you fulfill your promise?" Imo Shaoai said calmly. "When?" Ning Chen asked. "Now." Imo Shaoai put down the wine cup in his hand and said, "Hongwuan." After about 10 breaths of time, the door creaked open, and the veiled woman walked in. She bowed respectfully and said, "House Master." "Hongwuan, take off your veil and let Lord Ning." Hearing this, Hongwuan's body trembled. However, she did not dare to go against the former's words, and lifted the veil on her face. When the veil was lifted, a shocking scene entered their eyes. Her originally fair and beautiful face had a hideous and terrifying sword wound across it, destroying the appearance of her entire face. Her flesh and blood were exposed, causing people to be unable to help but feel their hair stand on end. Outside the room, Einer quietly followed them and came to Ning Chen's side. When she saw Hongwuan's face, her small hands unconsciously trembled. "Your swordsmanship isn't bad." Ning Chen didn't pay attention to Hongwuan's appearance, and indifferently commented, while looking at the sword scar. "What do you think? Are you confident?" Imo Shaoai asked. 100%, Ning Chen said slowly. "Brother Ning, please help me." Imo Shaoai stood up and said. Ning Chen nodded. He stood up and waved his hand. In a dazzling azure light, Genesis Supreme appeared, and a sharp aura spread out. Swish! Genesis Supreme moved, and there was no time to react to his sword. It was so fast that it was gone in the blink of an eye. When one turned around, Genesis Supreme had withdrawn his sword and vanished. "Einer, let's go," Ning Chen called out to the little girl. "Oh!" Einer reacted and hurriedly ran after him. Clang! In the room behind them, the sound of a string resounded. A silver thread appeared in Imo Shaoai's hand, and turned into a stream of light that sealed the wound on Hongwuan's face. A light veil flew up and covered her face. Imo Shaoai withdrew his hand and revealed a smile. "All right, your appearance will be restored in 3 days." Hongwuan suppressed the excitement in her heart and said with tears in her eyes, "Thank you, Tower Master." "Huh." Imo Shaoai chuckled. "The word thank you is too light. In order to restore your appearance, this Tower Master was tricked out of a lot of secret information by that young Master Ning. Hongwuan, you have to work seriously in the future and earn more money to make up for today's loss." Hongwuan smiled through her tears. Hongwuan will definitely not disappoint Tower Master. In the heaven room, Einer was lying on the tea table in boredom and fiddling with the teacup. Ning Chen, do you think Sister Hong Wan's appearance can be restored? Ning Chen was standing in front of the window thinking about something. Hearing the little girl's question, he returned to his senses and said, yes. How do you know? Yiner asked in puzzlement. Tower Master Xiaoye is a businesswoman and won't do a losing business. Ning Chen calmly said. Since Mo Xiaowai had already paid the reward, it was impossible for him to work for nothing. A businesswoman would always haggle over the smallest details. Oh, Yiner replied as if she didn't understand. Since it could be cured, the rest wasn't important. Yiner. Ning Chen looked at the little girl and calmly said, I'm sorry. He owed Yiner this apology. He had once promised to take good care of her. However, he still abandoned her on Locket Mountain that day. Yiner was startled and tears flashed in her eyes. Soon after, she smiled brilliantly and said, I forgive you. Yiner, you haven't seen what your master's wife looks like, right? Ning Chen turned around and looked outside the window. No. Yiner shook her head in surprise. She's called Ghost Woman, the current master of the underworld. She's very beautiful and kind, kinder than all humans. When she wakes up, you'll definitely fall in love with her. Ning Chen's deep eyes flashed with the brilliance of memories as he softly said, What's wrong with her? Yiner didn't understand. She won't wake up for now. However, Master is doing his best to wake her up. Ning Chen turned around and tried to smile, but for some reason he couldn't smile. Yiner sensibly didn't continue asking. She got up and walked over to him. Her small hand held his big hand and she softly said, Yiner will work hard with you. Within the bright guest room, Mo Xiaowai sipped his wine and sighed inside. Every devil had a past they didn't want to talk about. And this person was the most special devil he had ever seen. Even though he had lost his heart, he still worked hard to keep his promise. Yiner, let's go, said Ning Chen in the sky guest room. Where to? Asked Yiner. Mo Xing, to search for immortality, replied Ning Chen. The two of them walked out of the room hand in hand and went downstairs. They didn't say goodbye or exchange greetings. Life was just a passerby. Meeting was fate, and in the end fate would leave. In front of Xiaoye Chang'an, thousands of armed guards quickly ran over. Because of the silver-armored general's death, they surrounded the restaurant. Ding! The sound of a string rang out. In the next moment, blood blossomed from the hearts of the guards blocking the path, and they fell down. A song of farewell sent off life knowing. The splendor of life was so dazzling when it faded away. The Xiaoye Tower's master used the most beautiful scene in the world to send off the guests of Xiaoye Chang'an. The two figures gradually disappeared into the cold wind. In front of Xiaoye Chang'an, blood dyed the ground. No one was able to stand. In the starry sky, Ning Chen didn't walk so quickly when he wasn't chasing after the immortal corpse. He brought Yiner with him as he walked through the air. This was the first time Yiner was enjoying the beautiful scenery of the starry sky. She let go of his hand and floated around on her own. Ning Chen calmly followed behind her. His expression didn't change at all. Yiner's foundation had once been cleansed by phoenix blood. Although her cultivation was still shallow, she was still not someone an ordinary Hotian expert could compare to. Ning Chen, hurry up. Yiner turned around and shouted. Ning Chen nodded and quickened his pace to catch up. The starry sky was boundless. One couldn't see the end of it. Walking through it was like standing on a vast ocean. It was so small that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. After walking for a while, Yiner lay on Ning Chen's back and fell asleep. She became that heartless little girl again. Although the sword crafting villa in Central State wasn't the most powerful, it was hard for any other power to compare with them in terms of education. A sword crafting master who cared about the world used himself as an example to teach the future generations the word tolerance. Yiner's kindness became the only warmth around Ning Chen. Although it couldn't melt his demon heart, life knowing had to remember his promise. The little girl's hair hung in front of her and floated in the starry sky. Ning Chen gently pushed her hair behind his back. His footsteps became steadier, so that the little girl could sleep more comfortably. A black figure flashed in the starry sky and quickly flew towards the depths of the Red Phoenix star region. That day, the huge hand that covered the sky appeared from a distant star. It was so powerful that it was shocking. If it wasn't for the distance, even he wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed. Master Mo, who was mentioned by the Dawn Moon Tower Master, was close to the level of a true immortal. Perhaps he could answer the question he had for a long time. As for the Red Phoenix Star and the Jade Pool Divine Water, he didn't need to worry about it for the time being. Although he didn't know what happened, the Phoenix body had indeed gone to the Red Phoenix Star. That sword was cruel and merciless. It didn't seem like the style of the Phoenix body, but it really appeared in front of him. He had absolute confidence in the Phoenix body. Among the three bodies, the Phoenix body was the most intelligent. In the heavens beyond heaven, where there were no emotional factors, the Phoenix body was the most difficult to deal with. Even if he encountered an irresistible danger, the Phoenix body, which was the fastest in the world, could at least protect his life. The promise of the three bodies was that even if he was trapped forever and living a life worse than death, he had to survive at all costs. Because from the time when the three bodies were one, their lives no longer belonged to one body. In this life, unless the ghost girl woke up, the life knowing had to continue on the path. Ningchen, how far is it? Ina had woken up. She used her hair to touch his face and asked in a sweet voice. Soon, Ningchen said softly. When we reach the Mo planet, teach me how to use the sword, Ina continued. Okay. Ningchen nodded and replied. In the depths of the distant Red Phoenix stellar region, an old man in a white robe sat cross-legged on a Tao platform, on an enormous star filled with vitality. His entire body was coiled with seven-colored brilliance, and he possessed the bearing of an immortal, causing him to seem extremely extraordinary. Master Mo, the current master of the Mo planet, was the person whose cultivation was the closest to a true immortal in the entire Red Phoenix star region. Under the Taoist altar, famous cultivators sat quietly and listened to Master Mo's preaching. At this moment, on the Mo planet, an illusory fate appeared. It was different from the fate possessed by the dynasties and great sections. It was hazy and difficult to distinguish. It was indescribable, and even the supreme masters on the planet couldn't see it. On the Taoist altar, Master Mo opened his eyes and looked at the unusual aura in the sky. A brilliance that no one could understand flashed in his eyes. Chapter 613. In Mo planet, Ningchen descended with Yin-Er. The Yellow Spring's divine seal sealed away all the demonic aura. In his Dantian Chi Si, only the Phoenix origin cyclone was left spinning. A breeze blew past, and under the fluttering black hair, there was a slightly delicate face. Deep in dark eyes, no emotions could be seen. Ningchen chose to seal his own strength, because Mo planet's master was the closest existence to a true immortal in Red Luan star field. If he didn't do so, his identity might be exposed. The two of them walked forward, passing by one big city after another. They observed the customs and heard about everything in the world. Mo planet valued martial arts, and martial artists could be seen everywhere. Even Xiantian experts were not rare. Of course, most of the Xiantian experts were in the fifth tribulation realm. Experts above the three disasters were still rare. After Ningchen sealed his demonic aura, his cultivation dropped back to half supremacy. However, unless one was an expert above the supremacy realm, others still couldn't detect his cultivation. Little Yin-Er was only at the 7th grade natal realm. Although the streets were filled with them, there wasn't much difference. The two of them headed west, keeping a low profile and calmly. Like many other martial artists, they headed towards Mo planet's Tao altar. Mo mountain, EU peak, mortal paradise. On a Tao altar, Mo planet's master was preaching. He was dressed in a white robe and had a celestial aura. Below him, experts from various great inheritances, and even various big planets sat quietly, listening to Mo planet's master explain the path of cultivation. Cultivation of Qi has existed since ancient times. In the beginning of the primordial era, when the primordial era was first created, the heavens and earth were settled, and there were thousands of races. Among them, the gods, demons, ghosts and other races that were born in the primordial era were extremely powerful. Thousands of races prostrated themselves, and humans were one of them. This situation only changed when the first batch of Qi cultivators appeared. These Qi cultivators absorbed the brilliance of the sun and moon, and absorbed the spiritual Qi of heaven and earth, constantly strengthening themselves until they could fight against gods and demons. At this point, humans were no longer food for demons and ghosts. This batch of human ancestors were called immortals by the world. The 4 great immortal realms were created in this era. The lords of the east, west, south, and north were the most powerful. Among them, the Queen Mother of the West and the Lord of the East immortal realm were the most powerful. In this era, the only goal of cultivators is to become an immortal, to soar into the sky and not be enslaved by demons. Becoming an immortal has become everyone's greatest hope. In the ancient era, the spiritual Qi of heaven and earth gradually decreased, and the immortal world was sealed. The path to the immortal world also disappeared, and cultivation became extremely difficult. If people wanted to ascend to the immortal world, they had to find a new path. Therefore, during this era, people cultivated the Tao. In the ancient era, the changes in heaven and earth suddenly intensified. Gods, devils, demons, ghosts, and other powerful races disappeared almost overnight. The 4 great immortal realms also collapsed for unknown reasons. People panicked and were at a loss. They didn't know what was going on. At this point, the immortal world no longer existed, and people could no longer become immortals. During this era, cultivation was more about finding the truth, so it was also called cultivation. After the ancient era, too much time had passed. The truth of the changes in the immortal world could no longer be found. People's goal of cultivation gradually changed from immortal cultivation, Tao cultivation, and cultivation to immortality, and fighting for fame and fortune. The martial arts of the mortal world and Qi cultivators were no longer clearly distinguishable. People lost faith and gradually sank into fame and fortune. That's why Yama King came to the world and personally created a new realm, dividing the universe into the inner world and the outer world. Does everyone know how many realms the path of cultivation is divided into? Asked Lord Mo while looking at the people below. Below the Tao platform, the experts of the great sects looked at each other. Among them, a young man answered. The 3 realms are the Hotian, Xiantian, and Treading Immortal realms. Lord Mo nodded slightly and said, for all living beings in the world to cultivate and comprehend the Tao, they indeed start from the Hotian Foundation establishment, go through the Xiantian baptism, and then treading immortal realms to reach the pinnacle. Everyone here is an overlord of a sect. You've overcome 5 tribulations, 3 disasters, and achieved the great perfection realm, becoming the supreme realm of the mortal world. However, at this point Lord Mo changed the topic and continued. The reason why the supreme realm of the Xiantian Great Perfection Realm has the word mortal is because the Xiantian Great Perfection Realm has yet to break away from the category of mortals. 800 years of lifespan is a lifetime. On the path of cultivation, the first realm is the easiest. The second realm is several times more difficult. It requires extraordinary talent. If you want to achieve the Great Perfection Realm, you have to walk your own Tao and see the origin of the world. The third realm is also the most difficult realm. You have to continue walking down your own Tao based on the foundation of the Great Perfection Realm. You have to comprehend the essence of cultivation, make the great leap, and embark on the legendary path of immortal ascension, which is also known as the Treading Immortal Realm. This realm is also different from the first and second realms. The Treading Immortal Realm only has 3 minor realms, the void, the corporeal, and the true. The difference in strength between each realm is like heaven and earth. Simply put, the void realm can be found, the corporeal realm is hard to find, and the true realm is unknown. Only cultivators who have cultivated to this level can be considered to have truly embarked on the path of the strong. They can go to many forbidden places in the mortal world. At this point Lord Mo, who had been preaching for several days, temporarily stopped and said calmly, "Everyone, do you have any other questions?" Lord Mo, a royal consecrator of a prosperous dynasty, said, "Are there only 3 realms in the path of cultivation?" Is there a fourth realm in the world? Lord Emo shook his head and said calmly, "At least I've never seen one." "Which realm is Lord Emo in now?" another overlord of a great sect asked. "Late-stage corporeal realm," Lord Emo replied. Behind the experts of the various sects, Ning Chen held Yiner's hand and sat in an inconspicuous position. After everyone finished asking, he said, "Lord Emo, can one come back to life after cultivating to the corporeal realm?" Hearing this, a strange look flashed across Lord Mo's eyes and he said, "No. What about the true realm?" Ning Chen asked again. "Maybe, maybe not." Lord Emo did not confirm nor deny, and he explained, "I've never seen a true realm expert, so I can't measure the ability of a true realm expert." With Lord Mo's ability, how many years will it take for you to cultivate to the true realm? Ning Chen continued to ask. "At least 100 years. Lord Emo replied. Ning Chen fell silent and did not ask again. The path of cultivation is rugged and difficult. I hope that the things I've taught these days will be helpful to everyone. In addition, I will accept the 9th disciple today. After passing the test, he can become my disciple," Lord Emo said calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd below was in an uproar. The Lord of Emo planet had not accepted a disciple for 100 years. So why would he have the heart to accept a disciple today? Everyone present knew that the lowest cultivation level of the 8 disciples that Lord Emo had accepted before was at the Khanate Full Circle realm, and there were even a few who had stepped into the immortal realm. Their talent and achievements were extremely shocking. It could be said that as long as one could become Lord Mo's disciple, it meant that they were half a step into the immortal realm. As long as the opportunity came, it was very likely that they would enter the 3rd realm of cultivation that all cultivators dreamed of. I wonder what criteria Lord Emo will use to choose a disciple. Below the platform, a grand elder of a great sect whose cultivation level had reached the peak of the Khanate Full Circle asked. "The same as 100 years ago. Temperament, strength and luck." Lord Emo replied. "I will use an illusory realm to test everyone. As long as anyone can escape from the illusory realm and take 10 moves from Qi Huan, they will pass the test. The first person to pass the test will also become my 9th disciple. Of course, if no one can take more than 10 moves before sunset, it will be arranged in order. The person who can last the longest will become my disciple." When everyone heard this, they were shocked. Not to mention the illusory realm, just Qi Huan's test alone was not something that ordinary people could pass. Qi Huan was the Lord of Emo planet's 5th disciple. His talent was unparalleled, and his strength had already stepped into the immortal realm. It was almost impossible for anyone below the immortal realm to take 10 moves from him. "Qi Huan, get ready." On the platform, Lord Emo spoke. "Yes, master." A young man in green walked out and respectfully bowed. "Ning Chen, can you beat him?" Behind the crowd, Yiner tugged at the person beside her and whispered, "It might be possible to undo the seal," Ning Chen said softly. "Then can you take 10 moves from him now?" Yiner asked again. "I'm not sure. I'll only know after I fight," Ning Chen said honestly. "Fight?" Yiner asked doubtfully. "Fight." Ning Chen nodded. "Everyone, I'm about to start. Those who are unwilling to become my disciple can leave now." On the platform, Lord Emo stood up and flipped his palm. Multicolored light scattered from the sky and spread continuously, drawing out the evil thoughts and obsessions in everyone's hearts, turning them into inner demons that trapped their consciousness. Beside Ning Chen, Yiner, whose cultivation was not yet at the Xiantian realm, was not affected by the multicolored light. Her big eyes quietly looked at the people beside her without any worry. Grandpa Sword Master had said that illusory realms were inner demons. In this world, anyone could be trapped by inner demons, except for Ning Chen. That was because Ning Chen was a devil, a true devil. Devil, where did inner demons come from? Under the multicolored light, the 3 disasters, half-step venerables, and venerables' consciousness were trapped, unable to break free. After an unknown period of time, the first person finally broke free from his inner demons. However, he was defeated by Qi Huan in the 3rd move. Gradually, the second person, the third person, a total of 7 people walked out of their inner demons. However, no one passed Qi Huan's test. On the path of cultivation, the longer one walked, the more they suppressed their obsessions. Relatively speaking, it was easier for those with lower cultivation to pass the illusory realms test. Iner, who was waiting at the side, dozed off. After a while, she fell asleep on the lap of the person beside her. Ningchen slowly opened his eyes. There was no emotion in his eyes. He gently patted the little girl's back, not in a hurry to go up. It was true that he wanted to get close to Lord Mo, but he didn't want to stand out too much. After another hour, the eighth person stood up. It was a young man in golden battle clothes. His cultivation had already reached the mortal supremacy realm. He was extraordinarily valiant, and one could tell with a single glance that he was definitely a proud son of heaven from some great sect. Seeing the young man in golden battle clothes come up, Ji Huan's expression became more serious. He no longer held back. The fierce battle shook the mountains and the earth within 100 zhang radius. Formation runes flickered continuously, blocking the shockwaves of the battle. Move after move, heaven and earth shook. Until the eighth move, the young man in golden battle clothes was defeated by the suppression of his cultivation. However, he was still the one who lasted the longest. Time passed, and the next dozen people didn't last more than 8 moves. A day's time gradually passed. The sun set in the west, and the time limit was not far away. After the experts of various sects, Iner, who had slept for several hours, finally woke up. She straightened her body in a daze and rubbed her eyes. When she saw the person beside her, she didn't react at first. A moment later, her body shook, and her face revealed a trace of disbelief. "You haven't gone up yet? I'll go now," Ningchen calmly replied. He stood up and walked forward step by step. Chapter 614. In front of the platform at Mo Mountain Ziyu Peak, Jiming walked over. Behind him, the other cultivators who had just woken up didn't look too surprised. This was already the 47th cultivator. Other than the young man in gold, the others couldn't last more than 5 moves. The time limit was almost up. It was hard to change the result. "Please." Seeing the young man in front of him, Ji Huan reached out his hand and said politely, "Please." Ningchen replied and waved his right hand. Amidst the green light, Taisher's blade appeared and slowly descended. When the divine weapon of Taoism appeared, Sword Will rumbled. The moment he held the sword, the expressions of all the cultivators present changed. A completely different aura was emitted from Ningchen. After one step, the person in front of them disappeared. With a clang, the palm hit the blade of the sword. The sword chi scattered and shook violently. The power of the sword shocked everyone, but the sword suddenly changed direction. It was so fast that it was hard to distinguish. Ji Huan's expression became serious. He focused on dealing with it, and used his advantage in cultivation to suppress the speed. In the blink of an eye, the attack and defense were too fast for the eyes to take in. Before he could react, 7 moves had already passed. Unwilling to let it end like this, Ji Huan shouted, and the true essence around him activated the power of heaven and earth. Endless air currents gathered and forcefully blocked the blade of the sword. The instant Lin Yun's sword was restrained, a shocking palm surged out. The might of the palm was unstoppable, not showing any mercy at all. Seeing this, Jiming let go of the sword in his hand and rushed out to avoid the palm power. Then he rushed back and grabbed the sword again. The moment Ji Huan regained his chi, he broke through the barrier of true essence. His exquisite control over his sword caused the eyes of the experts from the various sects to flicker continuously. It turned out that the sword could be so strong. When the sword was in front of him, Ji Huan regained his chi and blocked the blade with true essence again. The 9th move appeared. The palm essence condensed the power of the wind and clouds in all directions. The unavoidable move swept out again. However, Jiming's expression didn't change. He turned his steps and the light of the water flickered. He quickly merged with the shadow body art and used the wind move to avoid the blade of the palm. Seeing this, Ji Huan's eyes narrowed. After the 9th move, the 10th move appeared. He didn't hold back at all. The shocking palm strike created a strange phenomenon in the void. A green lotus appeared between the heaven and earth, and the heaven and earth within 100 feet of it collapsed instantly. The formation runes flickered, and the might of the celestial trampling was undoubtedly displayed. Formless sword. Knowing his destiny and calming his mind, he concentrated his sword on a single point and cut open a path of survival amidst the raging waves. Another sword followed after the first. The sky-severing sword followed the same trajectory and separated the world-shocking palm. Ning Chen's body slid several feet away before he managed to stabilize himself. Blood spurted out of his mouth. "Thanks for letting me win." After 10 moves, Ning Chen wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth and put away his sword. Qi Huan nodded. His cold expression eased a lot. He bowed politely and turned to leave. It was a shocking battle that reached the pinnacle of martial arts and the pinnacle of the sword. It was brilliant beyond compare, causing the experts from the great sects to be unable to recover from their shock for a long time. "Your name?" Mo Zhu said from the platform. "Ning Chen. From today onwards, you are my 9th personal disciple," said Mo Zhu calmly. Ning Chen bowed, not saying a word. Below the platform, the golden-clothed young man clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. A vicious look flashed in his eyes, but it was well concealed. Now that Mo Zhu's 9th personal disciple had been decided, everyone congratulated him and left. Mo Zhu glanced at his 9th personal disciple. His expression didn't change much. He nodded and disappeared in a flash of multicolored light. 9th junior apprentice brother, come with me." Qi Huan walked up with a gentle expression. "Yes." Ning Chen nodded. He waved at the girl not far away and followed. "Who is this child?" asked Qi Huan in surprise. "My benefactor's descendant," said Ning Chen. Qi Huan nodded slightly and didn't ask any more questions. He continued to lead the way. Mo Mountain was like a paradise on earth. It wasn't surrounded by towering mountains. Instead, it was more like a broken mountain range with many smaller peaks around it. There were already people living in the 8 peaks around Whispering Peak. Ning Chen was brought to the 9th peak and arranged a residence. There was a dense bamboo forest on the 9th peak. In front of the bamboo forest was a house made of bamboo. It was very spacious, and it wasn't inferior to the residences of the world's nobles. 9th junior apprentice brother. Master might summon you in 2 days to teach you a cultivation method. Before that, you should rest well," said Qi Huan softly. "Thank you." Ning Chen nodded. After settling the former, Qi Huan didn't stay any longer and returned to his 5th peak. Iner sat on a small stool and kicked her legs back and forth. She asked, "Ning Chen, does Mo Zhu really know how to revive the dead?" "At the very least, he's the most likely person," said Ning Chen calmly. "Oh," said Iner softly. After tidying up the room, Ning Chen walked out of the bamboo house and looked at the bamboo forest in front of the house. He thought for a moment and waved his hand. A bamboo tree flew over. Ning Chen looked it up and down and flipped it over. He formed a sword with his fingers and cut it down the middle. Then he cut off the branches and leaves on it. When Iner saw this, she curiously ran forward and stood to the side to watch. "What are you doing?" asked Iner, puzzled. "I'm making a sword for you," replied Ning Chen. "Bamboo." Iner was surprised. "Your cultivation is still low. A sword made of divine materials is too heavy and doesn't suit you," said Ning Chen as he cut the bamboo tree. "Oh," replied Iner softly. She stood to the side and watched quietly. She wondered what her first sword would look like. Before long, the bamboo tree in Ning Chen's hand had been cut into the shape of a sword. There didn't seem to be anything special about it. "It doesn't look good." Iner pouted unhappily. "Wait," Ning Chen replied softly. His sword finger cut across his left palm. Blood immediately dripped down and dyed the entire green bamboo sword blade red. The girl was startled. Just as she was about to say something, she was shocked by the scene in front of her. On the green bamboo sword, a red flame rose. The blood and the bamboo sword slowly fused together. The entire sword blade gradually turned from green to red. After several breaths, the flames scattered and the red sword reappeared. The exquisite sword shape didn't lose any of its sharpness. With a flash of light, the wound on Ning Chen's hand healed. He handed the red sword to the girl and calmly said, "Do you like it?" Einar took the red sword. Her big eyes were shining, and she smiled like a blooming flower. She nodded and said, "I like it. No matter what happens, you can't leave this sword by your side. Do you understand?" Ningchen reminded her. "Okay," replied Einar obediently. "I've already told you how to practice the sword. You have to work hard and persevere. You can't be lazy. There are no shortcuts in the world. It's the same for practicing the sword. Don't think about taking shortcuts. Otherwise, you'll end up hurting yourself." Ningchen seriously taught her. "Okay." Einar nodded. "Okay, it's getting late. Rest first. Tomorrow morning, we'll start practicing the sword." Ningchen said. "Okay." Einar replied again. She turned around and went back to her room to wash up and rest. Ningchen stood outside the bamboo hut and looked at the other 8 peaks in the distance and the legacy peak in the center. A trace of thought flashed through his deep eyes. Master Mo's lecture had allowed him to understand many things that he didn't know before, especially the explanation of the 3 realms of the treading immortal realm, the illusory, the corporeal, and the true realms. It had given him a lot of inspiration. Among the experts of this realm he had met before, Mu Chang'e and Nu Chang were undoubtedly in the illusory realm. As for Chao Tianxi, because he had broken the Netherworld King's barrier, he had been severely injured and wasn't in his peak condition. It was difficult to determine his cultivation level. As for Xian Luo, based on the situation of the battle that day, he was at least in the early stage of the corporeal realm. Before he was sealed, he must have been even stronger. With his current strength, after the seal was removed, he should be able to fight on equal footing with an early-stage illusory realm expert like Qi Huan. If he faced an intermediate-stage illusory realm expert, he might have to pay a heavy price. However, once the divine seal of the underworld was removed, it would be difficult for his demonic aura to hide from Master Mo. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he absolutely couldn't make this choice. The moon set and the sun rose. A night passed. In the morning, Einar got up and practiced the sword. Every move was the simplest foundation. Ningchen stood at the side and watched. When her sword deviated, he reminded her, "Ninth junior brother, Master has summoned you to Legacy Peak." At this moment, a familiar voice sounded in the 9th peak and entered Ningchen's ears. When Ningchen heard this, a faint strange light flashed in his eyes. He looked at the little girl who was practicing the sword and said, "Einar, I'm going to Legacy Peak. I'll be back soon. Continue practicing here." Einar turned around and wiped the sweat on her face. She said in a delicate voice, "Okay." After giving his instructions, Ningchen didn't delay any longer. With a move of his feet, he turned into a ray of light and flew towards Legacy Peak. On Mo Xing platform, Master Mo, who was dressed in a white robe, sat cross-legged. Below him, 5 young men and women stood quietly. Qi Huan stood on the second seat on the right. When he saw Ningchen walk over, he nodded slightly. "Greetings, Master." Ningchen bowed respectfully. "Old Nine, what do you want to do after joining my sect?" On the platform, Master Mo asked. "Longevity." Ningchen lowered his head and said. Master Mo nodded and said, "I have 7 techniques and 2 scriptures. Among them, your 7 senior brothers and senior sisters have already learned 7 of them. Your 8th senior sister has also achieved some small success in the lunar scripture. Only the last scripture, the solar scripture, hasn't been cultivated by anyone yet. Are you willing to take it?" "Thank you, Master, for your teachings," Ningchen replied. Only then did Master Mo reveal a gratified smile. With a wave of his hand, a rainbow-colored light fell, and an extremely complicated cultivation technique entered Ningchen's spiritual sense. After a while, Master Mo stopped and said, "Cultivate well. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask your 5 senior brothers and sisters." "Yes," Ningchen softly said. "You may leave." Master Mo waved his hand and said, "Yes." Ningchen bowed again and immediately stood up to leave. "You may leave too," Master Mo calmly said. "This disciple will take his leave." The 5 young men and women bowed respectfully and left together. After the 6 of them left, Master Emo once again closed his eyes on the platform, hiding all his thoughts. After leaving Legacy Peak, Chi Huan looked at the silver-clothed woman beside him and reminded her, "8th junior sister, your cultivation speed has been too fast recently." The silver-clothed woman stopped and softly said, "Thank you for your reminder, 5th senior brother. I will pay attention. Your strength attribute is the opposite of 9th junior brother's. Perhaps you can ask him for help," Chi Huan suggested. The silver-clothed woman fell silent. After a long time, she softly sighed and said, "The current him is too weak. It's impossible for him to contend against the lunar energy in my body." Chi Huan's face revealed a trace of emotion as he said, "I really didn't expect that you would be the last one to enter the sect, but your cultivation speed is the fastest. Perhaps this is fate." The silver-clothed woman responded and immediately walked forward. Chapter 6:15. Ning Chun returned to the 9th peak of Emo Mountain. Ina was still practicing her sword in front of the bamboo forest, sweat dripping down her face. Every move she made was methodical. Ning Chun stood quietly to the side, not bothering her. Not long after, 2 figures came together. One was dressed in green and had an extraordinary temperament. The other was a woman dressed in silver and had silver hair. She was so beautiful that it was hard to look at her directly. Ning Chun was no stranger to the man in green. It was Chi Huan. However, he only knew that the woman in silver was called Ling Luozhen. She was the 8th disciple of Master Emo 9th junior brother. Chi Huan greeted him with a smile. Ling Luozhen looked at the young man in front of her, and the coldness in her eyes eased a little. She nodded in greeting. Ina, who was practicing her swordsmanship, turned her head to take a curious look when Ning Chun raised his hand and knocked on her head. "Ah!" Ina cried out in pain. She covered her head with her hands and pouted so hard that one could hang an oil bottle from her mouth. "Don't get distracted. Continue practicing," Ning Chun said calmly. "Fine, I'll do it." Ina mumbled and continued practicing, not daring to get distracted again. Ling Luozhen noticed the red sword in the little girl's hand, and her beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. It was a blood-refined weapon. "9th junior brother, can we talk in private?" Chi Huan said softly after watching for a while. "Okay." Ning Chun nodded. He glanced at and walked to the other side. The 3 stopped 100 steps away. Chi Huan looked at the person in front of him and said seriously, "9th junior brother, let me give you a piece of advice. You must build your foundation step by step on the path of cultivation. Remember not to be impatient. This is especially true for the Sun Sutra that Master passed to you." Ning Chun narrowed his eyes. Chi Huan seemed to be implying something. "In a few days, Master will probably send you to the Feng Shui Forbidden Area to train. At that time, he will send one of the 5 of us to go with you. If possible, it's best to let your 8th senior sister go with you," Chi Huan said softly. Ning Chun looked at the silver-haired woman. He still couldn't guess what was going on. "9th junior brother, I owe you a favor," Ling Luozhen said softly. Ning Chun thought about it and nodded. "Can I know why?" "I can't say." Chi Huan shook his head and said, "Anyway, remember what I said to you today. I hope you never need to know the truth." After that, the 2 of them didn't stay any longer. They said goodbye and walked down the mountain. "9th junior apprentice brother, be careful of everyone in the sect, including us." Just as they were about to leave, Ling Luozhen turned and seriously warned him. Ning Chun frowned. What was going on? Chi Huan and Ling Luozhen's words were too strange. They seemed to be warning him about something, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. "Ning Chun, I'm hungry." Not far away, Ina finally couldn't take it anymore after piercing the 10th bamboo into a hornet's nest. She jogged over and said in a delicate voice. Hearing the little girl's words, Ning Chun was stunned and did not react in time. "I'm hungry," Ina called out again. Ning Chun came back to his senses. He flipped his right hand, and his phoenix vitality rose up. He was about to pass it to the little girl. "I don't want to." Ina took a step back and dodged. She pouted and said, "Grandpa Sword Master said that if I don't eat, I won't grow up." He lied to you, Ningchen said calmly. Grandpa Swordmaster wouldn't lie to me. I don't care. I want to eat. I want to eat. Ina hugged his arm and shook it with all her might. Ningchen frowned again. How was he supposed to find food for this girl in this place? Let's go to the back of the mountain. Ina dragged him towards the back of the mountain. Ningchen didn't refuse, and allowed the little girl to drag him to the back of the mountain. The path to the 9th summit was rugged and difficult to walk on. After walking for a while, Ina didn't want to walk on her own anymore. She climbed onto Ningchen's back and refused to get down. Ina, you've already grown up. Ningchen said softly. You can't be like a little girl anymore. Ina smiled innocently and hugged him tightly with her arms, refusing to get down. Perhaps it was because Ina only had one relative by her side. But after they left the inner world, she became exceptionally reliant on Ningchen. She was just like Ningchen when he was still young. She always had an indescribable admiration for the seniors who protected her under their wings. The reflection in the depths of Ningchen's memories made him unwilling to continue talking about it. He carried the little girl and walked towards the back of the mountain. There was a primitive forest in the back of the mountain. There were no traces of people, and it looked very quiet. When they reached the dense forest, Ina jumped down. As she walked, she looked around curiously. The dense forest was quiet. Other than the occasional bird flying past, there were almost no other living beings in sight. The two of them walked forward. After about an hour, they heard the sound of flowing water not far away. Ningchen walked over and looked at the small river in front of him. With a wave of his hand, he shook out a few palm-sized fish. Go and pick up some dry wood, Ningchen said. Okay. Ina responded and jogged to the side to pick up the dry branches that had fallen to the ground. After a while the dry wood was picked up. Ningchen started a fire and placed the cleaned fish on the fire. Then he waited patiently. After you're done eating, go down the mountain and buy some things you like to eat, Ningchen instructed softly. Okay. Ina nodded vigorously and replied. Don't leave your sword, Ningchen reminded her again. Okay. Ina delicately replied. A quarter of an hour later, several small fishes were roasted one after another. Ningchen passed the roasted fishes to the little girl, and then quietly watched from the side. You're not eating? Ina took a bite and couldn't clearly say anything. I'm not hungry. You can eat, said Ningchen calmly. Oh. Ina finished one in a few bites and picked up another one, eating it happily. Human. The crackling sound of the bonfire was extremely clear in this quiet ancient forest. At this moment, in the depths of the dense forest, the earth rumbled and trembled. A figure rushed out. The evil image behind him was incomparably huge, and it was extremely shocking. Ningchen's expression sank. His figure flashed, and he condensed Yuan into a sword finger to block that figure. With a clang, his sword chi was blocked. This person had actually used his physical body to block Ningchen's sword. In the next moment, the evil image condensed and opened its mouth, swallowing the world. Ignoring the person in front of it, it swallowed the girl. You're asking for death. Killing intent filled Ningchen's eyes, and a devilish aura filled his heart. Ningchen's eyes instantly became incomparably deep. With a wave of his hand, Taisher appeared, and his sword cut through the air. With a loud bang, both sides took a few steps back. Their expressions became serious. Human cultivator, said the man gloomily. Ina, leave first, said Ningchen as he glanced at the girl. Be careful. Ina obediently replied, and then ran out of the forest. Brat, are you the disciple of that old monster from Legacy Peak? Asked the man. So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Said Ningchen coldly. Arrogant. Whether you are or not, you will become my meal. The man moved once more, and the evil image behind him moved with him. The powerful pressure did not seem to belong to a human. Ningchen swung his sword to meet it. Intense rumbles continuously rang out in the forest. Fist against sword, their might shook the heavens. The 9th peak rumbled, and the trees around it collapsed one after another. At that moment, on the platform of Legacy Peak, Lord Emo opened his eyes and looked at the 9th peak. He did not say a word, but the world around him had already changed. Dark clouds tumbled in the sky above the 9th peak, and the pressure suddenly dropped. The shocking pressure immediately attracted the gazes of the 5 disciples from the other peaks. On the 5th and 8th peaks, Qi Huan and Ling Luozhen looked at the changes in the 9th peak, and a glint flashed through their eyes. Their master was even stronger than 100 years ago. On the 9th peak, the man in the middle of the battle also felt the pressure from the sky. With a cold snort, he took a step back and quickly retreated into the depths of the forest. Ning Chun sheathed his sword, and a cold light flickered in his deep eyes. He did not expect that there would be a primal chaos beast on the 9th peak. The waters of Mo clan seemed to be much deeper than he had imagined. After a moment of thought, Ning Chun collected his thoughts and walked out of the forest. In just a few moves, the dense forest had already been destroyed to the point that it was unbearable to look at. It was a complete mess everywhere. Crack. Not long after he walked, a soft sound came from under his feet. Ning Chun stopped and looked at his feet. Then he bent down and picked up the broken stone slab. He flipped over the stone slab. The words on it had been eroded by the wind and rain. However, he could still recognize them. The stone slab was a tombstone. There were 4 words carved in the middle of the tombstone: Hua Yang's tomb. However, the strange thing was that the person who had erected the tombstone at the bottom right corner was also Hua Yang. Ning Chun frowned. It was really strange for someone to erect a tombstone for themselves. There was only one explanation for this. This person called Hua Yang already knew that he was about to die when he erected the tombstone. This person called Hua Yang must have an extraordinary identity if he could ascend the 9th peak. He might even be the previous master of the 9th peak. Ning Chun looked around, but did not find any traces of a corpse. He scanned the area with his divine sense, and walked a few steps to the left. With a wave of his hand, a green light flashed and a jade pendant flew out. The jade pendant was warm and cool. The silk wrapped around the jade pendant had been eroded by time. Only the jade pendant was as smooth as before. Strange. Ning Chun murmured, and looked in the direction where Hun Dun disappeared. Was it related to him? Outside the forest, Ener was waiting anxiously. When she saw Ning Chun walk out, she heaved a sigh of relief. "Are you okay?" Ener ran forward and asked with concern. "I'm fine," Ning Chun said softly. "Who is he?" Ener was puzzled. "He's not human." Ning Chun said seriously. "He's a Hun Dun, a ferocious beast among ferocious beasts. He's very powerful and can devour everything." Shock flashed across Ener's face. Ferocious beast? Why was there a ferocious beast on the 9th peak? "Let's go back first," Ning Chun said softly. "Okay." Ener nodded and took his hand. They walked forward together. At the same time, the young man in yellow on the 3rd peak retracted his gaze. He walked to a secret room not far away without saying a word. He pushed open the stone door and walked in. In the dark secret chamber, the light of incense could be faintly seen. Looking through the light of the incense, one could see that there were memorial tablets one after another. At the end of the memorial tablets, the incense in front of a memorial tablet had burned out. Under the last bit of light, the name on the tablet was eye-catching. Hua Yang. Chapter 616. On the 6th month of Mo Mountain's 9th peak, Ning Chun's cultivation of the Sun Sutra had reached a certain level. Spiritual qi within 100 miles surged rapidly into the demon's body. In an instant, yin and yang resonated. On the 8th peak, the supreme yin qi in Ling Luozhen's body circulated on its own. It shone with a cold light and showed signs of breaking through again. Ling Luozhen's expression changed. She reversed her cultivation technique and forcefully suppressed the rising aura around her. On the platform of Legacy Peak, Master Mo opened his eyes and looked at the 9th peak. A faint light flashed in his eyes. Although he was slower than the others, he did not disappoint him. "Come to Legacy Peak. I have something to tell you," Master Mo said. "Yes." On the various peaks, the figures respectfully accepted the order. On the 9th peak, Ning Chun also opened his eyes. His figure flashed as he rushed towards Legacy Peak. Not long after, the 6 of them arrived together and waited for orders. Old 9. It's time for you to go to the Feng Shui Forbidden Area to train. There are many dangers here. You can choose a senior brother or sister to accompany you, Master Mo said calmly on the platform. Ning Chen's eyes darkened. The other 5 also looked solemn and did not say anything. Among the 5 of them, Qi Huan saw Ling Luozhen, whose slender hands had turned white, and sighed softly in his heart. This trip to the Feng Shui Forbidden Area might be 8th junior sister's last chance. After weighing the pros and cons for a moment, Ning Chen raised his head and looked at the silver-haired woman in front of him. He said calmly, I choose 8th senior sister. Hearing this, Mo Zhu nodded and said, Old 8, accompany Old 9 on this trip. Yes. Ling Luozhen loosened her hands and stepped forward respectfully. The 2 of you can leave when you're ready. There's no need to say goodbye to me. Also Old 3, Old 5, Old 6, and Old 7. Continue to work on entering the Western Celestial World. Master Mo said again. Yes. Qi Huan and the other 3 bowed and accepted the order. On the side, Ning Chen's eyes flashed when he heard the words Celestial World again. It disappeared in a moment, and he carefully hid it. All of you leave. Master Mo waved his hand and said calmly. All of you leave. The 6 of them bowed respectfully and left together. Outside Legacy Peak, Ling Luozhen stopped and waited for the black-robed young man behind her to walk up to her. She said softly, 9th junior brother, thank you. Ning Chen nodded and said, Senior sister Ling Luo, when are we leaving? Anytime, Ling Luo replied. Then please wait for a moment, Senior sister Ling Luo. I need to return to the 9th summit first, Ning Chen said. Ling Luozhen frowned and said, You want to take care of that child? Can't I? Ning Chen asked calmly. It's not that you can't, but the Feng Shui Forbidden Area is full of dangers. One more person is one more burden. Think carefully, Ling Luozhen said seriously. Ning Chen was silent. After a moment he slowly said, I promised that I wouldn't leave her alone again. Once he finished speaking, Ning Chen did not say anything else, and walked towards the 9th summit. On the 9th summit, the little girl was practicing her sword. Ning Chen walked over, and pressed down on the tip of her sword. He said softly, Let's go. Where are we going? Blinked her big eyes and asked. It's a geomancy forbidden area, Ning Chen replied. Oh. She grabbed him with her small hand, and left with him. An hour later, 2 big and 1 small figure left Mo Mountain, which was surrounded by 9 summits, and headed towards an unknown place in the west. The Geomancy Forbidden Area was one of the 4 forbidden areas of Mo Gate. Today, the twins of Mo Gate's 8th summit and 9th summit would enter the forbidden area again. The moment they stepped in, the strange and colorful scenery made them unconsciously raise their guard. Faint lights flashed in the dark surroundings from time to time, and the yin qi was oppressive. Be careful. Anything in the Geomancy Forbidden Area can be fatal, Ling Luozhen reminded. Okay. Ning Chen replied softly. Red light flashed around his body and protected the little girl beside him. The spiritual qi in the forbidden area was extremely dense. Not long after they entered, Ning Chen felt the Sun Sutra's cyclone in his body spin rapidly, and his power rose steadily. Ling Luozhen was the same. The lunar aura spun on its own and kept strengthening. Whoosh! Suddenly, a strange light flashed past. It was so fast that it was hard to react to. In an instant, there was a light-tearing sound, and a tear appeared on Ning Chen's right sleeve. The power of geomancy was shocking. Iner panicked. When she saw that Ning Chen was not injured, she heaved a sigh of relief. Whoosh! At this moment, another strange light flashed past at a faster speed and swept toward the little girl. With a bang, the power of geomancy crashed into the protective phoenix vitality. The specks of starlight scattered and disappeared. Be careful. At this moment, Ling Luozhen, who was walking in front, changed her expression and quickly reminded him. In the depths of the Geomancy Forbidden Area, faint lights appeared one after another. There were hundreds, thousands, and endless, and they broke through the air. At this critical moment, Ning Chen pulled and took a step forward. His body was like an illusion, and he moved quickly. Ling Luozhen also used the lunar aura, The protective Jin Yuan Qi rose and blocked the power of geomancy. The dense attack lasted for a dozen breaths, and then gradually weakened. The two figures flashed and rushed forward. Not long after, the scene changed again. The heaven and earth rumbled, and a spring gushed out of the ground. The cold air whistled, and an ice statue rose from the ground. It was like a mountain, and it was shocking. With a boom, the statue swung its giant fist down. It was earth-shattering, and the earth kept cracking, spreading dozens of miles away. The murderous intent that followed was frightening. Ning Chen took the little girl and dodged again. However, a gust of wind whistled behind them. The cold wind turned into a black storm and came at them. Seeing this, Ling Luozhen took a step forward and pushed the statue away. Then she gathered the lunar aura and blocked the black storm. The dangerous geomancy forbidden area showed its sharpest fangs. Danger came with every step, and it was driving them crazy. Go and deal with that statue. The storm roared, and its power became more and more shocking. Ling Luozhen used the power of stepping celestial to block the storm and shouted. Ning Chen nodded. He turned around and jumped into the air. Taisher appeared and slashed down with his sword. The majestic sword light spanned hundreds of feet and drew a bloody line across the sky. The sword's power was shocking, and the void shattered one after another. The statue put its hands up, and with a huge tremor, its feet sank dozens of feet into the ground. One of its arms was shattered, unable to withstand the extreme sword power. Roar! The statue roared and punched out with its right fist again. The air surged as it crashed into Ning Chen. Ning Chen used Taisher to block it, but he felt a huge force and was sent flying dozens of feet away. Ling Luozhen looked back, and her expression froze. With a flip of her hand, a white silk ribbon shot out and grabbed Ning Chen's body. Are you okay? Ling Luozhen asked as she pulled him back. I'm fine, Ning Chen replied as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Ling Luozhen nodded. Looking at the statue and the black storm, she no longer hesitated. She opened her eyes, and they instantly turned silver. The power of stepping celestial rapidly rose, and a terrifying aura surged out. Restrained by the celestial treading force, the demonic golem's figure stopped, and so did the black storm. Ling Luozhen let out a soft cry, and her long silver hair fluttered behind her. She opened and closed her palms, and an incomparably tyrannical power swept out, instantly destroying the world. An instant later, the majestic lunar aura drowned out the statue and the black storm. The world returned to calm, and a dark scene appeared. We can't stay here for long. Let's keep going, Ling Luozhen said and then rushed forward. Okay. Ning Chen nodded and followed after him. To the side, Ener glanced at Ling Luozhen and softly asked, Ning Chen, how come you can't even beat that big guy? I don't have much phoenix origin in my body. It's not easy to recover, so I'll save as much as I can, Ning Chen replied. Oh, then let her fight, Ener straightforwardly replied. In the depths of the Red Luan star field, tens of thousands of li away from Mo planet, an ancient planet floated. The Red Luan star was one of the oldest planets in the world. It was so old that it was untraceable. The last impression people had of it was the legendary ruler of the Western celestial world, the Queen Mother of the West. The rulers of the four celestial worlds were all extremely powerful. Among them, the ruler of the Eastern celestial world and the Queen Mother of the West were the most powerful. In addition, the Queen Mother of the West also possessed a supreme treasure that even the other three rulers did not possess, the undying peach tree. Due to the existence of the Queen Mother of the West, the Red Luan star had once flourished for a period of time. However, after the collapse of the four celestial worlds, it gradually declined and gradually disappeared from people's attention. On the huge planet, there were many great sections. Vaguely, in a secret realm that was passed down from generation to generation, it was like spring all year round, and the scenery was exceptionally beautiful. In the depths of the secret realm, there were many palaces that were majestic and solemn. They were not inferior to the palaces of the mortal world. In front of one of the palaces, a red-clothed figure had calm eyes, but there was a trace of confusion that could not be concealed. Prince Consort, the princess invites you over. A maidservant walked up and respectfully said. The red-clothed figure collected his thoughts, nodded and stepped forward to follow. At the same time, in the palace at the center of the secret realm, a purple-clothed man stood quietly. Although his appearance was still young, his hair was already dyed white. He had an extremely terrifying aura that caused the world to tremble. Below the palace stood a beautiful woman in a long dress. Her appearance was flawless, and her temperament was noble and extraordinary. Red Luan, have you decided? The purple-clothed man on the throne asked. Yes. The woman nodded and calmly said. The phoenix is naturally noble and proud. It can't be bewitched for long. If he recovers his memory, have you thought about the consequences? The purple-clothed man continued. Since I have made this decision, I have absolute confidence, the woman replied. The purple-clothed man nodded, and did not ask any more questions. He looked outside the palace and softly said, Red Luan, the Western celestial world is about to open. This time, we must retrieve the sacred object left behind by our ancestors. Hearing this, a trace of light flashed through the woman's eyes. She slowly said, I will not disappoint you. The purple-clothed man withdrew his gaze and nodded. Go, I will wait for your good news. When the sacred object returns, it will be the day of your wedding. Yes. The woman respectfully bowed and turned to leave. At this moment, in the distant Xiaoyachang'an restaurant, the woman who was playing the zither suddenly trembled. The strings of the zither cut her finger, and drops of scarlet blood dripped down and dyed the zither red. The same name, but different circumstances. Princess Hong Luan won, and lost because of Hong Luan. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.